The following podcast contains spoilers, adult language, and a big sigh of relief.
It's over. It's finally over. I feel joy, like probably what it feels like when your child is born.
This is a message from the Office of Emergency Preparedness. Due to the recent crisis, we ask that you remain in your homes. Do not attempt to communicate or interact with the creatures, even if they are people you know.
Lock your doors. Bar your windows. The dead are coming. It's time for Aim for the Head, an all Walking Dead universe podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Diana and Steve.
Hi, and welcome back to Aim for the Head podcast. I'm Diana.
Hola, bonjour, Mila Steve.
Mila Steve. And this is podcast episode number 308. This week we're going to be discussing episode 11 and 12 of season 8 of the final season of Fear the Walking Dead. The title of the episodes are Fighting Like You and The Road Ahead. And unless you've been living under a rock and haven't listened to our podcast for weeks and weeks, this is the series finale, people. Whew, we did it. We did it. We made it to the end. We made it to the end. I feel like we accomplished something. Like we deserve some kind of award or medal or something. I don't know what it is.
I'll just take a check from AMC.
I'll just take my peace of mind of knowing I never have to watch an episode again.
Oh man.
Yeah, bad. So before we get into talking our points, first, for formatting reasons, when we've done double episodes in the past, Steve and I have sort of broken it up into like sort of two totally separate discussions. But the way these episodes kind of flowed last night, I'm sorry, not last night, but on Sunday when they aired, the way they sort of flowed one right into the other with not a lot of demarcation between the two, we're gonna dispense with what we've done in the past. Plus, why do something logical for a show that is completely illogical? So we will go ahead when we get into our points, and we'll give you the episode description for both, and then we'll just sort of talk about episode 11 and go right into 12 without any fanfare. So just so you're aware. But before we do that, let's talk just quick, off the cuff, as I call quick angry thoughts. And Steve, you did go first last time, so I get to go first.
You do.
I'm really sad.
You go first. Evens, I go first. What, did you have to go first?
I'm sad. So quickly, before we got started, Steve and I were talking a little bit about the episode, and we did text a little bit, obviously, as we do every week. But I made the comment, and I really think that it holds true for just to say this to all of our listeners, is that when you look up the word terrible in the dictionary, and then try and look up alternate words, like a thesaurus, there just aren't enough words that mean the same thing as terrible that you could use to describe these two episodes. I honestly am not even sure if there was even anything positive at all. We have always tried to have the whole, like, at least one thing is good about the episode. But this time around, I don't know. I don't think so. I can't really. No. Terrible from beginning to end. You're giggling. I'm just glad that I did watch it from the DVR'd version, so I was able to forward through commercials, and wasn't that a blessing? To try and make it as short as possible. So yeah, how about you? What words of wisdom do you have to apply to this steaming pile of doo-doo? I'm sorry, I take that back. It's two steaming piles of doo-doo. That's
piles, yes.
Make sure I'm accurate here.
No, I think you can just kind of lump it into just one ginormous pile of stinking doo-doo.
Lump. I see what you did there.
Yeah. What we were saying before the air, before we started, the one thing that I have to tip my cap to the knuckleheads for is their ability to continually outdo themselves, right? Because I mean, literally for these 6 episodes, every episode when it was over, I literally would be like, oh my God, they've hit bottom. Like they can't possibly make this show worse. And then it's like, oh no, you just wait till next week, and then literally the next episode airs and I'm like, oh my God, they can't possibly be any. And then the next time, man. So kudos to you, Knucklehead Ian and Knucklehead Andrew, in that, yes, your ability to continually go further and further down suck job city is successful, because I mean, this it's just, they're just, I don't know. I mean, I all I can say is it's just bad. It's bad on all levels, right? I mean, and as we pointed out, the last thing that was kind of limping it along was the actors hadn't really given up. They were still trying. And these 6 episodes, it's really clear that they're like, yeah, we're done. So it's I mean, it's, I don't know. We'll get into it. But yeah, I mean, it's, if someone can explain to me what the timeline is for this show now, I would love to have the Knuckleheads sit down and point out when things supposedly happened. And how people traveled thousands of miles across the country to save other people, and then took other people's babies that they must have had somehow, but how were they having a baby when they were out saving the world? I mean, I don't get it. It's just like, these guys just write stuff and just be like, yeah, that's what happened. And then they just, okay, good, done. And if you think about it after a while, your head hurts. So I don't know. I don't get it. They were awful. I mean, all 6 of these episodes were terrible, and they would all be in the top 6 for like worst episodes ever of this show, with possibly the videotape "We're Really Good Guys" being in there too, because that was a really forking stupid episode too. So, but yeah, I mean, let's get into it, because I want to get this over with.
Yeah, we have thousands of other things that we could be doing that are better than. Although to be fair,
right?
The amount of, we just want to say before we get started, if you guys are regular listeners, which we hope you guys tuned in, you guys have been with us the whole time. We did get an amazing amount of feedback, lots of really great thoughts. So as much as the beginning is a little bit of a slog, and yes, we want to get through that, it's mostly because we got so much feedback. We want to make sure that we devote plenty of time talking about that stuff, because that honestly is far more important than anything that happened on this television show, for sure. Just awful. Yes. All right, so let's get into talking about the low points of this show, because there couldn't possibly, just so people are aware, we work off of a shared document, and I always have it broken down into Diana, top moments, and Steve, top moments. I fixed mine, so mine just says Diana, moments.
Yes, yeah.
There's no such thing as top moments for this show anymore. It doesn't. You should not be allowed to call it a top moment, because it just tops of the bottom, I guess. Tops of the worst.
Well, there was one top moment in both episodes, and that was at the end of episode 12.
Yeah.
When it ended,
black, done.
when it stopped, when there was no more new picture, that was the top moment.
Yeah, exactly. As soon as the credits started to roll, I was like, yes. Clap, clap, clap. All right. So before we get into those moments, good, bad, and ugly, lots of them ugly, let's recap with the episode descriptions of these 2 wonderful episodes. And Steve, why don't you go ahead and take care of that for us?
All right. Well, for the final time, feels really good to say that. I just got to tell you guys, it's just our sponsors have been great this year, but it just really feels good to never have to have a sponsor for this show again.
Agreed.
Anyway, this week's episode is being brought to you by...
All right, you're listening to the Mo Ren and Ghoulie Grace show on WAFTH. Putting the dead back in dead air. This next song is dedicated to Diana. She loved the original back in the day and can't get enough of this new parody version. Here's the latest sensation that's sweeping the zombie nation. It's the Krusty Jugglers with Tracy's Mom, right here on WAFTH.
Tracy's mom has only got one arm. 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 On AMC there's a show that's really bad. Really bad. It was good, now it sucks, and that's so sad. So sad. It's written by two guys who are knuckleheads. Knuckleheads. I can't believe someone gave them Fear the Walking Dead. Walking Dead. They think they're being clever and writing great drama, but all they do is churn out crap like Tracy's Zombie Mama. Tracy's mom has only got one arm. She's stuck in the mud that somehow froze real hard. It's clearly plain to see these guys just don't know zombies. They always get it wrong, like writing crap like Tracy's mom. Tracy's mom has only got one arm. Tracy's mom has only got one arm. We started off in Texas and wound up in GA. Really strange. And cheap walkie-talkies with unlimited range. No flipping way. Guns in everyone's faces all of the time. All the time. But no one dies or even shoots. It's all a crime. A terrible crime. So many tense standoffs, it's all a bunch of crap. On top of it, it's obvious these clowns can't read a map. Tracy's mom has only got one arm. She's stuck in the mud that somehow froze real hard. It's clearly plain to see these guys fail geography. They always get it wrong, like writing crap like Tracy's mom. Tracy's mom has only got one arm. She's stuck in the mud that somehow froze real hard. It's really plain to see, oh those goddamn walkie-talkies. They always get it wrong, like writing crap like Tracy's mom. Tracy's mom, whoa. She's only got one. Tracy's mom, whoa. Just one. It's really plain to see they should not be making TV. They always get it wrong, like writing crap like Tracy's mom.
All right, D, how about that? You got a request.
I know. I didn't realize that a song I didn't like, I just all of a sudden magically liked again. But hey, this is a show that's all about taking stuff and making it illogical. So it might as well be said that, oh yeah, sure. The original version is something that Diana really liked. It's not true. It's totally not true. But we got to give mad props to our pal Joe for being a part of that. That was good times.
Yeah,
that was good times.
He put all the music together, and then he and I went and laid down the vocals, and yeah, it was amazing. He is really good at what he does, and so mad props to Joe. And
Thanks,
and
Joe.
yeah, I mean, basically, when you mentioned that you never really liked the original song, in my head, I'm like, well, I'm gonna make a parody now. So
I have to do this now. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, so let's get on with it. So we have 2 episodes tonight. We're reviewing 8.11 Fighting Like You and 8.12 The Road Ahead, which is kind of funny to me because there were multiple episodes in the Supernatural show that were called The Road Ahead. And a lot of times they would start an episode up and they would show that credit, The Road Ahead, and they'd show scenes and stuff. So anyway, it made me the Supernatural nod. Although that's a much, much, much better show. And that show was kind of terrible at the end too. And it is light years better than this one. But anyway, 8.11, Fighting Like You. The description we have is: the Horde, led by Troy, surrounds the walls of Padre. Madison and her people must fight for their survival to save what remains. And I can think of at least two things that are wrong in that description, but at this point, I don't care. Moving on to 8.12, The Road Ahead. The description we have is: as the series comes to an end, hooray! The fate of Padre's survivors seems to rest in the hands of an unexpected hero. Ooh.
So before we get into our points, we have to say, we went into some discussion last week between us and some of the listeners on who we thought that unexpected hero was. Mm-hmm. I'm not even sure if it's clear who that was. Did they mean Troy?
No.
Or did they mean Madison?
Yep, that's who they mean.
Okay, so that's who they mean, but the fact that it's not terribly clear who that would be just reiterates how terrible this show is.
Well, that's right there. That's the marketing part of AMC going, oh my God, the ratings for this show are absolutely horrible. No one watches. People are just mocking us on social media for how bad this show is. We need to do something that'll try and get people to watch. And so they word it that way because most of us are like, ooh, who could that be? That could be somebody we haven't seen for a while. Whoever. And then that gets the curiosity up. That gets people that were like, oh, I haven't watched a show in years, but it's the last one. I should probably tune in. And there might be somebody coming back. That's all it is. I mean, it's just the marketing folks trying to make it appear interesting, right? And that get people who have given up on the show to be like, well, I got to see who's coming back. So anyway,
all right,
still terrible.
So let's get into I guess let's talk writers and directors, writer and director of episode 11, and then we'll get into the details if we have to.
Okay. Well, episode 11, and again, that is Fighting Like You, was written by 3 people, 2 of which we are very familiar with, and one of them is a new person, relatively speaking. It is written by Nick Bernardone, who we've talked about a bunch, Jacob Pinion, who we've talked about a bunch, and then the newcomer is this gal named Kelly Jane Costello. And for whatever reason, Fear loves to hire people that have like 18 names. I don't know why, but they do.
Yeah, it's their specialty.
And I would point out, too, that Bernardone and Pinion are also executive producers on the show. And I think if you go back and look at most of the writers for at least definitely this season and probably last season and maybe even season 6, all of them are executive producers. I mean, they're all that's they're bought in on the show, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're
basically it's like this show was terrible. We need people to write it, and if you decide to write it, we'll give you a producer credit as well, which means you'll get a cut of more money. Is what that means.
Yeah, we can pay you more. Exactly.
Yeah.
So anyway, again, Nick Bernardone has written 9 episodes of this horrible show. He wrote 1 in season 5, and then he wrote 3 each in season 6 and season 7. And then this season he wrote 8.8 Iron Tiger. That was the lovely Charlie as the trucker story with the pointless suicide at the end. And then he wrote this one, 811 Fighting Like You. Jacob Pinion, he wrote all 6 episodes of the Althea tapes, which was the shorts that they did with Al's interviews. He also wrote all 6 episodes of the Dead in the Water, which is the submarine story to explain how the submarine got washed up in Galveston. And then he wrote 6 episodes of this awful show. He wrote 2 in season 6 and 2 in season 7. And then this season, in season 8, he wrote Iron Tiger with Nick Bernardone. So they wrote it together. And that, again, is the awful Charlie's Trucker story. And then this episode, Fighting Like You. And then our newcomer is this gal, Kelly Jane Costello. This is her only credit in the Walking Dead universe, but she has written some TV in the really real world. She has written episodes of the show Madam Secretary, if you remember that show with so that was on CBS, I think. I don't know if it's still on or not. But
right? Yeah.
Yes, that was Tay Leona's show, correct. Yeah. And then our director is a gal named, and I'm gonna butcher this name, I'm afraid. It's Haifa Al-Mansour, I think. That's what I'm gonna go with. So right. If I said it wrong, I apologize. She has some credits outside of the Walking Dead universe that she's done, but she actually also directed one episode of the Tales of the Walking Dead. She directed episode 1.4, which was entitled Amy Dr. Everett, and that was the one with the guy from ER from
Anthony Edwards.
Anthony Edwards, and the kind of the strange, preserve that was set up for the dead or whatever, and he's studying them anyway. She directed that one, so
that was an interesting episode. Yeah.
I guess, not enough blood for my taste, but yeah, okay. But that is your writers and your director. So, if angry letters should definitely be addressed to them.
Yes. You got all this extra producing money. You should have at least been able to write something that was better.
Yes. Exactly.
So before we get into the points of each episode or points of episode 11, before we get into 12, whatever, I just thought it was helpful and almost inspiring to just include in my notes just the title of Eric King's article. No more text than this. And you don't even really need to, read it because it's awesome, but I didn't need to include any of it here. All you need is the title of the whole article, which is A Dreadful End to a Terrible TV Show. And it's really all you needed to know. That's it. That's the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It is. It's an incredibly funny review. It's another kind of stream of consciousness, like he writes his thoughts as he's watching the episode. It is oh my god, I just laugh out loud. It's just,
I think he's done it. I think this is the third week in a row he's done this. Yeah
and he just points out the absurdity of wait, now you like this person, they just killed your dad, and wait, now you want to kill it. It's just and he's like, the best part is when he starts saying like, oh, do they have a bird name now? Let's call them Magpie. Like Lucy, he names Flamingo.
It's pretty good.
So funny.
It's great.
Definitely worth it. It's Eric Kane at Forbes. If you just Google Eric Kane Fear the Walking Dead, it'll come up in your search feed, and you can click on it, and it's very funny. Absolutely.
And he wrote, actually, just so you guys know, there's two really great articles this week. He did one that was an actual review of the show where he talks about everything that happened in the episode, but then he did a second sort of sidebar article where he talked about some specifics on like lack of deaths and things like that. That's the sidebar episode is actually the sidebar article is actually really, really good too. So I don't want to give away all of it, but he talks about like Sarah and Wendell and some stuff and some things that were kind of ridiculous, and the fact that there were no like major deaths really. So very good reads, lots of fun. Yeah,
absolutely. Check it out.
Yeah. Let's talk the cold open before we got to the title card. The whole structure, all I wrote down was that it's the scene, the whole scene is all about trying for you to have sympathy for Troy and Tracy. This is the only point of all of that. Did you have a moment at the beginning where you're like, how did she get back to him? Because I know, like the end of the last episode, she ran away from the frozen tundra of Georgia, and was able to, I don't know, find her way back to her dad.
Well,
without any other resources. But hey,
Look, on this show, I mean, people always are just, like 20 feet away, right? I mean, how many times in the last 3 or 4 episodes have people like Strand, Madison leaves the group. I have to go off on my own. And then later, the next episode, Strand he jumps off the boat and runs for 10 minutes and finds her.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's just these guys have just dispensed with any sort of, we don't really know where they are. Yeah, it's just no. Yeah. So if somebody needs to find somebody, damn it, they're gonna find them. So yeah.
Yeah. So I had a hot second where I was like, wait, what? How is she back with her dad? And then I was like, oh, I guess. And then I was like, you know what? It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It just really doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Yeah. It doesn't. And they unfreeze the herd. Even though, I mean, none of those people are wearing, like big jackets or at all to suggest that it's cold there. Yet somehow these ghouls are all still frozen in the ground, like Tracy's mom, I'll point out. And of course they're also then they're, and I think that Eric Kane pointed this out. They're playing on their boom boxes. They're playing Mississippi Queen. And I'm like, are you just trying to confuse everybody even more as to where they are? Because we're not in Mississippi. We're in Georgia.
Yep.
But anyway, so they do that. And then Troy's people are like leading the herd, right? Because this is going to be their big attack on Padre. Because if you remember, Tracy saw a lighthouse for like 2 seconds, which means obviously she's going to be able to know where Padre is. So they can finally launch their big attack on Padre. And so then I think Russell is the name of his little assistant. He takes like a big chunk of the herd, and then Troy's taking another group, and it's Troy and Tracy are in this pickup truck, and they're driving along, and they have this lovely conversation about how and they got Tracy's mom in the back of the truck.
Yeah.
And
like you do.
Like you do. And again, they reiterate the thing that, Tracy's mom is going to get to eat Madison because that's, it's only fair because Alicia apparently killed Tracy's mom with the crazy ideas she filled in her head, which she got from Alicia. Or got from Madison. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. But right in the middle of that, they fall into a trap that I can only assume they must have stumbled into where back in the 80s they shot the movie Return of the Jedi, because it's like an old Ewok trap where like the big log comes flying on a rope and smacks the truck. I don't know. I mean, that's what it looked like to me. And the truck goes flying off the road, and then when Troy comes to, it's now light. It's the next day, and he has basically a giant log rammed right through his shoulder, like pretty much where his heart would be. But he's fine.
You know what? It was in that sort of nebulous shoulder. There's nothing there. Like in television, if you bring up like one of those pictures that shows like where all the muscles and the nerves and all of the organs are, one of those like human skeleton things, whatever, where that you see on the insides. The thing is like in that upper shoulder area, there's nothing there. It's literally blank. There's no blood vessels. There's nothing.
It's just void. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's perfect, but only for TV characters.
Yeah, it's and I mean later on, like first of all, Madison pulls it out later on, and there's no blood at all, and then on top of it, he like buries his wife. He's like shoveling dirt and stuff. I'm like, are you kidding? That guy wouldn't be able to move. I mean. If you've ever met anyone that's like broken their shoulder blade, or their collarbone, right, which is right there. I mean, they will tell you that you can't move. You can't. I mean, even just turning your torso a little bit, that bone will shift and it'll move, and it's just unbelievably painful. I mean, so yeah, I did. It was. I think my note was. The knuckleheads went one step past the magic bullet shoulder wound. Now they have the magic wooden stake shoulder wound, And we're not talking about like, maybe a half-inch diameter. I mean, that piece of that branch is got to
Yeah.
be like an inch wide,
Oh,
an
for
inch
sure, yeah.
diameter. I mean, it's
Yeah.
massive, and he's just like, yeah, I'm okay.
Yeah, he was like, I literally was expecting him to put on an English accent and to tell me that it was only a flesh wound.
So
I mean, that was,
'tis only a flesh wound.
yeah, that's what, you silly English knigget.
Oh.
Yeah, so I was, yeah, God, I can't even with that. Yeah, the thing is like, here's the big waste. So we've got the cool Ewok trap, right?
Mhm.
But here's the thing. Are we supposed to believe that was Crane that did that?
Yeah, I think Eric Haynes put that in his review, and I hadn't really thought about it. At that point, I'm just like, of course they run into a trap. Whatever, somebody said it. I don't care. I almost expected like new characters to be introduced.
Right. That's
at
what
this point, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's what we're supposed to believe, that Crane has, somehow with whoever's left from his group, have set these traps, because
magically.
Yeah, so he had that one, and then he has the little pit that our wounded Troy falls into, and is perfectly fine too, by the way.
Yeah,
when he does that. So yeah, I mean, that's as good an explanation as anything else. So let's go with that.
Yeah, I agree. And the only thing that bothered me about that was, usually when people go through the trouble, that's a pretty elaborate and specific trap, right?
Oh yeah.
It isn't just like the one that he fell into afterwards. That's more of like, sure, that could be a people thing, that could be a walkers thing, like to make the walkers fall in there, or it could be a hunting trap, like they're hoping a deer will fall in.
Right.
Who
Yeah,
knows?
sure. Right. A boar or something.
The ones that are in the ground, I can understand those not being, sort of watched currently, because maybe you have multiple ones of those. But when you set up a really big, first of all, someone let it go, right?
Well, no,
the tripwire let it go, right?
the truck runs it over the tripwire, and that's what releases the Ewok trap. Yeah. But
that's one of the things, like, it's such an elaborate trap. Don't you think someone's watching it? So where were they? That's the thing that I was expecting. I wasn't expecting there to be any ghouls going after the truck or anything crazy like that. I was expecting after that for someone to come over and like start terrorizing Troy, because they're the ones that set that trap, and that's not what happened at all.
Right. Yeah, no,
like,
no, not
like
at
the direct opposite of all of those things happened, of course. So that's the opening sort of montage crap. And then I'm very interested in this. When you watched these episodes, and I'm going with something here, did you watch the ones on the app? Like on AMC app?
I watched it on AMC Plus.
AMC Plus, yeah. Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
I did not. I watched the broadcast version.
Mm-hmm.
There was only one title card used on the broadcast version.
Okay.
And I think because when you watched on AMC Plus, was it like you watched episode 11 and then you had to go to episode 12 and watch that separately?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're two sets of credits and everything. Yeah. Yeah,
there was one set of credits on the broadcast version, and it said in the beginning, like, part 1 written by blah blah blah, part 2 written by blah blah blah. There was one, and for me there was one title card, and it was the one with all the people in it.
Yeah, that's because on the app, if you look at the two episodes separately, which is the way that they intended to originally did it, and then AMC said, no, we're going to do both of them at the same time. That's the title card for episode 12 is the whole the cast photo. Right. The episode 11 is Troy, and the rope bridge is behind him.
Yeah, so I saw your notes and I was like, what are you talking about? And then it dawned on me that they probably did it this way. They probably just got rid of all of the specific stuff for like the episode 12 thing, like episode 11, and just sort of smushed it and whatever. So I only saw the one. So was it a cool title card, the Troy and the rope bridge one?
No.
Okay, good. I'm glad I missed it then.
Yeah. I mean, it did nothing. So
it did nothing.
You're not,
okay. All right.
And all it did is it just reminds you of, oh yeah, we have the incredibly stupid rope bridge and quicksand thing coming up later. So
okay.
no, it doesn't help.
And I'm glad, because I wouldn't have wanted to be warned that was happening, because it was pretty bad. Yeah. So we come back from the title card and commercial, and it's so difficult, because even if you keep notes, your notes, when I read through them, they don't remind me of anything, because your notes are exactly what the show was, because you wrote down blah, 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 second chance, blah, 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 Alicia, blah, 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 Padre. I feel like that's what the whole episode, both of the episodes, every time that anyone had any kind of sort of earnest or heartfelt conversation, they either brought up second chances, keeping people safe, Alicia, what Alicia wanted, and Padre, and that's all. That's what the entire conversation was about,
pretty much.
And then there was a little side conversation about who Tracy's mom was. Yeah.
Well, yeah. One of the exercises I tried to do, and you're absolutely right, but one of the exercises I tried to do this because I tortured myself. I watched both of these episodes twice.
Oh, right? I don't know how you did it. I really couldn't.
No, I mean, it was awful. But the second time, I made a deliberate attempt. I took out a pad of paper and a pen, and I tried to put a check mark down every time somebody flip-flopped in both of these episodes from their
So how many
position.
pieces of paper did you use?
I mean, I couldn't do it. I lost track of it, because sometimes people were flip-flopping like mid-sentence and then flip-flop back. I mean, it's Troy wants to kill Madison, then Troy doesn't want to kill Madison. Madison wants to kill Tracy. No, now she doesn't want to kill Tracy. I mean, it never ends, right? It's Troy's a bad guy. No, now he's kind of a good guy. Now he's suddenly changed and he wants to live with everybody on pod. I mean, it was just ridiculous. And like I wrote that down, that blah, 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 second chance, blah, 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 Alicia, blah, blah, because that's really all I heard when people would start talking about that stuff.
It's literally like the Charlie Brown's teacher. It's really like wah, 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 wah. And there's nothing of substance. There's nothing for us to sort of, I couldn't really make any notes because there was nothing of substance to talk about. It's mostly, I feel like most of the stuff that we both wrote about, whether it was episode 11 or episode 12, were almost like action point moments, because every time they opened their mouths, I feel like my brain started to leak out of my ear.
Your eyes just kind of glaze a little, and you're like, "Whoa, what just happened?"
Yeah, exactly. And so the only things I really made notes about were like physical sort of things that happened. So
just kind of going into it, Tracy decides to go get help because Troy's got this big tree sticking out of his arm or his chest, and so she immediately finds the MRAP somehow.
Right, because that's how it works.
Yeah, we don't know how. And, of course, that's where Madison is. And so Madison then, zip ties her to the MRAP on the inside. And she's like, well, I'm going to go get Troy, and I'm going to kill him, which is exactly what you want to tell someone's, child. I'm going to go wipe out your father. But anyway, she does, and she goes up to him, and he's right there. And she could clearly kill him. She could shoot him. She could smash him with a hammer. And she doesn't. Yet again. Yeah. This is a case where all these people are just constantly talking about how bad they all want to kill this guy, and they have multiple chances, and they're just like, no.
Yeah.
And they have this conversation where all the blah, blah, blahs happen and so on, and then Troy basically says he'll tell her where the hurt is if he gets to talk to his daughter, and he has to do it in person because, walkie won't work in this case. He has to be face-to-face. And then a walker shows up, a ghoul shows up, and Madison turns her back on Troy, who, again, has just buried the mom.
Yeah.
And Troy then hits her in the back of the head with the shovel. And I got to tell you, that was a kill shot.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, Madison is dead in any other reality. And not only is she not dead, she doesn't even have a concussion. She doesn't even have a sore head. She just pops right up like the Energizer Bunny. And and that's when Troy falls in the trap, and she's like, "You're not having a good day," and I'm like, "Your brain should be coming out of your nose right now."
Yeah, you're having the best day, Madison.
Yeah. So anyway, they bring Troy back to the MRAT, and of course, Strand shows up, and then the best part was when Crane came up and got him. Yep. And I literally stopped the tape and I'm like, who is this guy? I'm like, he made such a little impression on me, and I honestly thought he died. I honestly thought that they killed him too. Until she
said Crane out loud, I had no idea who it was.
Yeah, and then I'm like, oh, and again, we should have known better, because if you watch the previously, they show him in the previously.
Oh, to remind you what he looked like.
Yes, because if you remember, it previously starts and we see Madison smashing the mirror window. And you see him on the inside, and he has that "what are you doing" look on his face, right? So I'm like, okay, they did kind of telegraph us that he'd be. But I mean, literally, I'm like, that guy's still alive. He was the whiniest little dude to ever be a villain on this show, and he still has minions somehow. And so he is, he wants to get back to Padre too, and he's trying to make a deal with Troy, and they get away from him, and then they get to the rope bridge, and he then shows up and he cuts it, and they fall into the quicksand. And please tell me your thoughts on the quicksand, because my forking God.
You used caps lock when you discussed quicksand in your notes. I didn't, because I just wrote a rickety bridge and quicksand, good Lord. Mm-hmm. And the fact that he used, and how dare he use Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
as a how dare you, sir. Yeah, I was very upset. There's nothing logical about it. No. Why would quicksand be there? It wouldn't. Mm-hmm. Why would there be a bridge like this over that quicksand?
Yes.
There wouldn't. And why would they go across it? There's got to be some other way to get around.
I mean, it's
run in another direction. It's literally just Crane. There wasn't like a group of them that were after them. It was literally just Crane showed up.
Yeah. Well, because Crane and his like a couple of dudes, I think Lucy or somebody and Daniel, they show up and they shoot a couple of them, right? One of them's driving in the truck, and Daniel shoots the guy in the driving, and then they swerve, and then So they a bunch of them get killed, and Crane kind of runs off, and then he somehow, because again on this show everybody can find anybody else whenever they want to, but I mean, just the inclusion of quicksand. And I would point out, remember, this is the part of Georgia that was apparently so cold. The ghouls were frozen in the ground like 20 feet away from where this quicksand is, yet it's warm enough that it's all water somehow.
Steve, I thought it was clear that when you are in a state that is downwind of a nuclear disaster, then you need to expect that global warming is real. And so you're going to be dealing with climate change. And it's possible that in one same zone, you may have Madison beating the shit out of some ghouls while in a tropical climate, and she's sweating, and there are palm trees around her. And then there's an area that has ice and snow falling. And then there's quicksand, because then there's quicksand, which is a really common occurrence in Georgia, from what I understand. I mean, we watched another TV show that took place in like Georgia area plus Virginia, and they never stopped running into quicksand. I mean,
every other week.
Yeah, it was like Rick was like, "What?" and he'd say, "What's up with all this quicksand?" It's pretty much what happened every week. I mean, so for us to call in a question that it was here is really showing that we're just trying to shit on this show. We don't
clearly, we're just haters. We are just haters, people.
We're the haters gonna hate.
Yeah.
I mean, T Swift is right.
That's right.
So yeah, I think I've spent as much mental energy on a rickety bridge and quicksand. If you were to go back 6 episodes and tell me, okay, Diana, picture it, the finale of Fear the Walking Dead, and there's going to be a very large, emotional and action-filled scene where Madison and Troy fall into a pit of quicksand. I would have laughed my ass off and told you to fuck off. And they did it. And there it is. That's it.
First of all, quicksand. I mean, if you're including quicksand in your story, you should not be writing. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it is that is just such a horrible device to use.
Yeah.
It lacks imagination. It is, just cliche beyond cliche. And the fact that these 3 people are like, what would be, I wonder if it was off the Wouldn't It Be Cool board, where they're like, we haven't had anybody in quicksand yet.
You know what? And here's the thing. If they could poke fun at it, there's that commercial, if you've seen it, where it's supposed to be, teenage kids running away from some marauder, and they go into a barn, and it's filled with all these really sharp objects. And
why can't we just get in the running car?
Why can't we just get in the running car? And they're like, look at her,
crazy?
Are you crazy?
Yeah.
If they had poked fun, tongue in cheek, oh my God, quicksand? What?
Yeah.
I would be okay with that.
Well, it'd have been fun if they're like, oh my God, there's quicksand there. What are we going to do? Let's just walk over there. Okay. And then they went around it,
Remember you've seen the movie Dodgeball, right?
Oh, yeah.
So when the sign that's literally called Deus Ex Machina falls on his head, that's comedy. That is taking something and making it ironic and you know what I mean?
Yeah, but see you're referencing something that's well written
and they mean for it to be comedic. Here's the thing: if they had a moment where they're like, what, anything that they, if Madison had rolled her eyes and been like, how the hell did we find the one place that has quicksand? Yeah. And we could have all had an internal chuckle. Yeah. Maybe I'd forgive them, but no.
No, that's light years beyond their capacity to write. But I have to ask you, while they're, Troy and Madison are slowly, sinking, Crane comes back and gloats a little, and he lays out some, what I think is impressive bullshit about Madison. Yeah. So let's talk about that.
Well, he says, Crane is overrun and killed by ghouls, which is goodbye. I don't mourn you for a second time. I thought you were already dead. But before he does, he does
he monologues.
He does the villain exposition where I've got you right where I want you, and I could shoot you in the head right now, but I'm going to spend a few minutes and tell you a story.
That's right.
Story of something that happened before. And he tells the most unbelievable story, because how is this factually possible?
It's not.
Crane says that he and Shrike heard on all of these magical we heard you on the radio. Mm-hmm. I'm so tired of those. Ugh. And so his story is that they heard Madison on the radio when she was telling Alicia and Nick not to come save her in the stadium. You're not gone. No one's gone until they're gone.
Right.
And she made them go away.
Yeah.
And they did that. Their story is they heard that and they went there and they saved her.
Yeah.
So I have lots of questions like that.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that most of the audience has the same kind of questions. I mean, the logistical one alone of that all happened in Texas.
Right.
And they're in Georgia.
Yeah. They're on
Whether
an
they're-
island in Georgia, yet they somehow were able to get to 1,100 miles away in Texas,
And-
to some I mean, it's not like Madison was giving out her coordinates, right? So how the hell did they even know where she was?
Also, let's not also forget that this is like 15 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Because they had this weird time jump within Fear. So I don't even really know where we are. I'm pretty sure if you figure it out, and if you do, God bless you. I think they're beyond the Walking Dead timeline at this point by a couple of years.
I think that you're right. They did a time jump, but I think it was only about 6 or 7 years. I don't think, and they did it after the rafts, after they all got in the rafts. But you're right. There was a little bit of a time jump after the stadium fire, and then the next story with the. Where Nick gets killed and Morgan shows up and all that stuff. But again, it was not very long. But you're right. I mean, it logistically, there's just no way that these two idiots did this.
Even if you take the amount of years, because we're supposed to believe that the amount of years from when the rafts went away from the Fallout area was about 7 years ish.
Well, how old is Tracy?
She's 8.
Okay, well, Alicia, after the rafts, found and rescued Troy and Serena and her and Tracy, right? So that event had to have happened when Tracy was, super young baby, right?
Right.
So we're talking a minimum of 8 years from when they got in the rafts to where we are now. And I can't believe that we're like getting into this, but
but I think to be fair, I think there was actually one moment where someone even said, whether it was Strand to Madison or Madison to Strand or something like that, it's been 7 years since blah blah blah.
Yeah,
and it was in reference to the rafts or something like that. So it's safe to assume it's about that. Now, from the beginning of Fear up until the moment on the rafts, I don't know, 4 years, 5 years.
Right. Again, I don't know.
Yeah. So let's assume about 12 years. But in the midst of that, we've got the 7 years passed from, whatever. We've got the couple of years, like say the stadium thing happens smack dab in the middle of all of that time. So what we're saying is Crane and Shrike, who were teenagers at the fall, were like 18 years old. When Madison, and so they had everything really up and running to the point where they were in Texas to be able to save her.
Well,
and once they sort of got the operation really up and running, I mean, maybe, but I don't know.
But on top of it, they had the operation running enough that both of them could leave and travel basically halfway across the country.
I don't know.
What happens when someone comes in and wants to talk to the mirror and there's nobody there?
I know, right? Yeah, to me, I think the number one thing is just the time and the geography of it.
Yeah.
None of which, considering the sources, they could care less about either one of those things. Time means nothing to them, and good Lord, geography means even less.
If you remember the song, it's fairly clear to see they failed geography.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. So I would have rathered if we never found out how Madison got out of the stadium. I would have been okay with that. Someone saved her, someone pulled her to safety, some unnamed, unknown person who just happened upon there because they saw a fire in the distance. Who cares?
Right.
How it happened didn't actually really matter. It makes it worse, I think, for them to have inserted this in there. It was already pretty unbelievable that Madison would survive but not look for her kids. So there was already a lot of unbelievability about the Madison comeback anyway, but now they just made it like 10 times worse, because if that's what they're going with, if that's the story they're going with, if that's their canon, is that Shrike and Crane are the ones who saved Madison from the stadium 1,200 miles away from where their home base was, then it's terrible. I don't understand how that's possible.
Yeah,
It's really like they wanted to, like, any knot that was left undone, they wanted to just tie things up. And it didn't matter if it made any kind of sense. They just, if there was an open knot and they're like, "Oh, we could do this at the same time." Sure, why not? You know.
Yeah, I don't even think it's that. I think it's just they just write whatever they want, and they're just like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't make sense. Who cares? Just write it. Just do it.
Yeah.
You know. I mean, it's almost like with Crane, right? When he showed back up, I'm like, who is this?
Now, keep in mind too, like, this is like, how many years has it been since they fought off Shrike and Crane? That's the other thing. That's where the other time jump is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right.
There's a couple of years there. So it's like, how, I don't know. I just
that not only is that guy still bouncing around, he's wearing the exact same outfit.
I bet he smells really good.
Oh, I know. It's just, you're just like, really.
I know.
Yeah, but and, you know, as soon as that guy said that story, when he told that story, I was literally like, that's wrong. He's lying. I mean, that just, you know, and then I thought maybe they were going to come back to that and like, no, that couldn't have been right, but they don't, because in their minds it's like, yeah, man, this is great. Look at all this. We're getting to reference stuff that happened in the past. This is really cool, man. How about us? Look at us. We're bringing up stuff that happened before we were even here. Cool.
I mean, and here's the thing. If this was a well-written series and they did all of those callbacks, talking about, you know, Mexico and the dam, and talking about being on, you know, Broke Jaw Ranch and all that, so like bringing up all these things we haven't heard mentioned in years, it would have been interesting to like relive a lot of that stuff. But it's not. It's this. This show which didn't acknowledge those things for years and years.
Yeah.
They never acknowledged any of that stuff. And then on top of it, now they're going to bring it up in the midst of this illogical storyline. They're going to bring up these things and remind you of, oh, I remember, that's when the show was good.
Yeah, right. Well, you just remember Daniel brings up freaking Travis. And that's got to be the first time Travis's name has been mentioned on this show since like the episode after he left.
Yeah.
You know, after he died. I mean, it's just, you know, and I think they mentioned the Abigail by name.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just, you know, clearly they're like, let's just pull in all these sort of callbacks to, you know, kind of, I guess, to lend legitimacy to what all the other crap they're saying. I don't know. It was awful. But yeah, that moment just was, you know, one of, you know, again, all-time new lows for this series, where I'm like, really, Crane, you and your sister like heard this transmission, which I guess in this universe makes sense because everybody can hear everyone else's radio. I mean, how many times in these 2 episodes did somebody say, I heard a lot of radio chatter about whatever it is that I need to know about? I mean, that came up multiple times.
Yeah. I mean, is it believable considering, like, if you think of the network that Shrike and Crane put together of like the boats and the being along the shoreline bullshit and all that stuff, and getting kids, and they were employing the use of watercraft a lot. Mm-hmm. Could they have very quickly made it over to could they have been, you know, over near Texas and heard that? I mean, sure.
Yeah. Well, they could, but okay, so they sail, you know, all the way around Florida into the Gulf. Then they sail, you know, up the Gulf Coast, you know, past Mississippi and Alabama and Louisiana, and into Texas. And okay, they stop in, I don't know, let's say Galveston. But again, that's been irradiated. Well, not yet. It hadn't been irradiated yet. But they stop at Galveston.
Mhm.
Okay, where's the stadium from there? The stadium isn't near water. It's, God knows where it is. I mean, and again, this is Delaware, Texas. This isn't like normal Texas. So it's a small state. But still, it's just like, okay, how did you find her?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know.
It's crazy.
It is crazy. And then just when you thought they couldn't have as much crazy squeezed into one episode as possible, but just as they're about to transition out of episode 11 and go into episode 12, Troy tells Madison on his deathbed, by the way, that no, Serena, who is the woman he was with, that he had been saying is Tracy's mom, Alicia is her mother, not Serena.
Yeah.
He said that on his deathbed. And of course, Madison goes crazy and da-da-da-da, and what have you done? And how could you do this to me? And blah, blah, blah. And of course, this all happens in front of Tracy, and she's not going to have PTSD at all.
No, not at all.
She'll be fine.
Hey, you know what? In about 20 minutes of episode time, she totally forgives Madison for,
It's true.
literally just killing her dad.
Yeah, that's
After
fine.
her dad was like, I want to live with you guys and like let's like sing Kumbaya together and like grow corn and shit. I mean, this is what I'm talking about, the flip-flops, right? So Troy ends up helping them. They shoot up some of the horde, right? And then, Dove and some other people show up in cars and they lead the rest of the horde away and they capture Russell and all that. And Troy's kind of like, again, still with this massive shoulder wound. He's like, hey, I want to live here on Padre with you guys. And like trying to kill you all this time, that was a mistake, man. And like, we got to be friends now. And of course, Strand is still doing the blah, 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 Alicia, blah, 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 second chance speeches. And so then Madison, walks up to him and he's like, you got to believe me, Madison. And she's like, that's the problem, Troy. I don't. And then she stabs him with Alicia's arm, right? And And so then literally as he's spitting up blood, Troy's like, Serena is not the mom. And like, well, who is her mother? It's Alicia. And I mean, I'm sure if you were to like stick your ear out your window at that moment when the show was aired on TV, you could hear across America this collective, no, I mean, and it's supposed to be dramatic and it was just terrible. I mean, you're like, really, and then he dies. And of course, then Tracy has witnessed this whole thing and she goes running off. And I think that's where the episode ends, right? And with Madison going, no, kind of beating Troy's dead body. Like, how could you? And so that's the end of that episode. And it's terrible. It's all terrible.
I mean, a real fitting end to part 1 of 2 of the crappiest pieces of television we've ever seen. I mean, they couldn't sink much lower, wouldn't you say?
Right. Well, and you talk about revisionist history. Before that happens, Troy is kind of finally like coming clean about. That's the other thing is Troy's story about what happened with Serena and Alicia. It changes like 6 times in this episode. Right?
Yeah, I'm like, still not sure I understand what happened. And
at first it's Alicia killed her, and then it's like, well, no, then like Alicia helped us, and then Serena was so like amazed by Alicia, she wanted to be like Alicia, and that got her killed, and then it changed again and again. But at one point, Troy says, his wife that Serena got bit on the arm, but then Alicia showed up and saved her, and Madison's like, how'd she do that? And he's like, well, she knew where to cut off the arm and how to do it. And I'm like, how? She didn't cut
Right?
off her own arm. She was like out
No.
cold, and they amputated it when she was passed out. And it was like the crazy people in the bunker that did it. I mean, what are you talking about? But
And she actually never really got her arm cut off because she had it was her real bones that were a
Yeah.
part of that whole thing.
right, but
It was like all of the
they
tissue, but you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they amputated her arm. They just saved, or she went and got it and saved the bones. Yeah, and then made the weird prosthetic. But anyway, in any case, she didn't do it. It's not like she was like 187 hours thing, where she like used a penknife and cut off her own arm. I mean, she, no. So that I thought was incredibly stupid. Let's see, what other things did I have? I know when Crane gets killed, it's got to be the dumbest, most again, this as a terrible a character as he was, that guy survived the zombie apocalypse for like 20 years. Mm-hmm. And literally Madison goes, "Hey, we're over here," and like 3 zombies show up and they get him.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, really? It's like, again, I get it. They don't have time. And, there's already way too many villains on this show that
they needed to show some deaths. They
Yeah.
needed to be like, look, this person died a horrible
Oh, look at
death.
that. He
And
got
then this person
eaten,
died a
man.
horrible death.
Yeah.
Right. That's it.
But so, yeah, I thought that was, I was just like, okay, I guess. I mean, it's like I think you're right. I think that, they will look at that as like, what are you talking about, man? We have people get eaten by the zombies. Look at this. And yet it is just so, I mean, it's like, I get it. If there's like 100 zombies coming at you and you can't just run, you're kind of boxed in and there's no dumpster. I get it. They're going to get you. And that makes sense. But if there's 3 of them and you're in like an open field like that, you can get away from them,
Because newsflash, you can move faster than them.
Yeah, you can, and you can push them and trip them, and I mean, anyway, it's not worth going over. But I thought that was really stupid and unbelievable. And so that's supposed to be the cliffhanger episode that that Troy lied and Serena is not Tracy's mom, and in fact. Alicia is Tracy's mom, and then I would have to agree that I personally feel that Tracy's mom does have it going on.
Yeah. I mean, even if it was Serena, though, and she's Tracy's mom, she's going to have it going on forever because she's the undead.
Well, no, if Serena's Tracy's mom, then she only has one arm. So you got to get the song right.
Oh, right. Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So.
But Alicia only has one arm.
I know, but Alicia has it going on because she's going to be my future Australian ex-wife.
Okay. All right. Let's move on from this topic, please.
Okay. All right. So that wraps up the craptacular penultimate episode of the show, and then we proceed right into 812
crap number 2.
but I guess when you saw it, it was just part 2.
They didn't even show anything on the screen, not that I remember, but I mean, I was forwarding through commercials, so maybe they flashed part 2 on the screen and I missed it. But I just know I came back from commercial and I looked down and I was like, oh, it's past X amount of time or halfway on the DVR because it all recorded as one big file, one big episode. It didn't really have like one episode separate, and then which is how it normally is. Yeah. But they told us way at the back at the beginning of the whole broadcast who they were, but let's chat first about writer and director for this episode.
Yeah, okay. Well, not surprisingly, the writers for the big wrap up of this wonderful show is of course the Knuckleheads. Yeah. So Andrew Knucklehead, Ian Knucklehead, I don't want to give them any more publicity than they deserve, which is none. I think it's pretty safe to say that as far as I'm concerned, the only thing they should be doing in the television industry is installing them. So, they're terrible. And they're the ones, if you ever wanted to know who's responsible for all this, it's them. But I am very disappointed that the director of this episode was Michael Satrazemis.
Yeah.
And he also, by the way, is an executive producer of this show. But he's listed with the Gale Ann Hurds and Bob Kirkmans and Scott M. Gimples of the world in the credits. So I imagine he is very much like in the stratosphere and not involved in the day-to-day production of the show. And I'm guessing he must have been contractually obligated to direct at least one episode of this piece of crap this year. And so he would kind of had no choice. But if that is not the case, Michael, I'm very disappointed in you for being involved in this crap.
He has, a reputation, but also like a sort of a track record of, he is typically, if it's not Nicotero directing the episode and you're like, oh, this is going to be good, it's been him and like maybe one other person. And to see him direct and know how terrible it is just
it's awful. And I mean, granted, there was not much anybody could. I mean, Kubrick would have had a hard time making this episode palatable, right? I mean, And I don't know if he was in phone it in mode either, right? He could just be like, look, let's just get this thing over with. But yeah, in any case, he went down a couple pegs, in my opinion, of how great a director he was because of his involvement on this episode. Because, I mean, if you thought the last episode was bad, just you wait, because, the hits are coming, baby.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, and then again, this one for me, watching it on AMC Plus, it had its own opening title sequence, and this is where I saw the cast photo. Where you have Madison in the middle, you have Nick and Alicia behind them, and then everybody else in like way in the background, you can see John Dory and all that stuff. So they're all in there, and it's like, okay, great, whatever. So
yeah. It was wonderful to include all of those people that we miss, and we're like, hey, John Dory, oh boy, did you get out when it was good.
Yeah, right.
I mean, let's put it this way. He didn't get out when it was good. He got out when it was bad, but it got progressively worse after he left. And it was bad when he left.
And he kind of set the kind of the norm for during the Knuckleheads run, whenever a main character left the show, was killed off, it's because the actor was leaving the show.
Yeah.
It was never there was never a Bob Kirkman, we need to kill somebody. Kirkman always famously said, with the comic that for The Walking Dead, that, if it went, he would look at how many issues had they gone since somebody died. And if it was, like more than like 3 or 4, he'd be like, well, we got to kill somebody, I mean, but again, comic book, obviously a lot different than actors. But I mean, these two guys, they're super squeamish. They don't want to kill anybody. I mean, if they could find a way to write it in that, you could just pat the zombies on the head and they'd go on their way, they would have done it, because they shy away from any kind of confrontation. And it's only in those extreme cases where the actor's like, I'm out of here, I'm not coming back, and once my contract's up with this episode, I'm done.
Yeah.
And so then they're like, well, since he or she is leaving anyway, then they'll kill him. But anyway, so the episode starts and we get a lot more of blah blah blah, keep Tracy safe, blah blah blah, Padre, and they talked about stuff, I guess. I don't know. It was meaningless to me.
It bore true for the previous episode and also this one, and I just wrote down that there's so much of we need to do it this way, the other way gets people killed, and we got to make sure to follow this path and whatever, and bring on up Tracy and keeping her safe and all. Like you said, I honestly couldn't keep track of it, because it just went back and forth, because there's Madison's way and then there's Strand's way. But Strand's way is supposed to be, this is what Alicia would have wanted. And then everybody else is like, I don't trust you because you have this past. So we're going to do it this way. But this is the way Alicia would have wanted it. But we got to do it this way because we got to make sure we keep Tracy safe. Like, it went back and forth. And like you were saying, sometimes within the same conversation, they would contradict each other and change.
They would.
And I just stopped trying to keep track, because I knew ultimately none of it would make sense anyway. So
Yeah.
what's the point of even wasting my brain cells on it? Is what I thought.
Exactly. So and I guess a big chunk of this episode is Madison needs to find Tracy because Tracy is now like the only link to her family left, right? The only piece of family she has left. And I do think it's pretty funny when she points out to someone, she told to Tracy when she finds her, because she finds her right away, because again, it's this show, and Tracy's like, why are you wanting to protect me now, and she says, because you're my daughter's child, and it's like, you could have just said that she's your granddaughter, right? I mean, that would be a much more like normal way that human beings talk. And then almost immediately, Tracy is like, you just like literally killed my dad like 10 minutes ago in cold blood. But sure, I'll go with you. I believe you. Yeah.
Why not?
So again, more case of the flippity flops. And so then Madison decides, well, okay, clearly the thing that we need to do as a, my daughter's child and I relationship building is to go find Alicia's ghoul corpse in Texas and put it down and then bury, her and Nick. And so they go to try and get a car. And of course, then they run into Flamingo or Lucy.
Yes.
And Daniel and all those people and Strand's angels. And they are like, we got to take her back to Padre. And they end up getting surrounded by ghouls in this garage. And so then Strand gets on the walkie-talkie and he calls Franck and asks him if he can come help. And Franck says, well, we really can't do that because we have our own problems, because apparently Troy's other guys have this big container ship that's filled with ghouls that they are very, very slowly driving up to Padre and the idea is they're going to like offload them, and these, ghouls are going to overrun the island.
Yeah, doing it. Their big plan, their big master plan was to offload the ghouls very like Saving Private Ryan, storming the beach method.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They were going to get as close as possible and then just let them go.
And then they just
that was their big idea.
Yeah. That was their big idea, and so anyway, so they can't really help, and they actually are like, Frank's like, we're in trouble, and so then Strand's like, no, Franck, and so he like opens the doors and goes running into the horde, in which now they all have to go out there and fight them, and then you realize, there's only about 20 ghouls out there. It's not like you guys couldn't have killed them all instantly, and they do make I think it's kind of funny that Daniel's like, we don't have enough firepower to like take them out. We have to hide. And this is like the first time on this show ever anybody's like, well, we don't have enough bullets. Right. I mean, they people waste ammunition on this show left and right and always have unlimited resupply. And yet here now that he's like, well, we don't have enough. And there's only like 20 of them out there. But anyway. So we get to me, the most frustrating part of this piece of crap episode, which is this large, slow container ship thing that is slowly approaching the island. And on the island, by the way, is Dwight and Sherry and June, and all of the little kid prefects and everything, and as well as the remaining German people. And literally there is a scene where all of them are standing and they're watching this, and it's literally they're like looking to their right the whole time, and then finally somebody like manages to like slowly glance to their left, and there's like this big boat like 10 feet away from them, and it's like, where did that come from? And they're like surprised, like, oh my god, they got us. And I'm like, how could you not see that coming? You know what I mean? It's like, how could you not notice this large ship is, and you can, I mean, it's an open ship and you can see the ghouls on the deck roaming around,
And the thing is like, sure, maybe a few of you were looking in the wrong direction, but you knew an attack was coming.
Right.
You knew Troy was coming for the island in some way, and you didn't know how, and you didn't know where. So isn't it safe to assume you've got people posted all around like the perimeter?
Yeah, right. And then to make it even worse, and you can go back if you have the stomach for it, you can go back and watch the scene where all these people are standing. There are like these Civil War era cannons mounted behind them. These really big cannons, and I'm like, yeah, could use some of those and shoot at that big slow boat that's 10 feet away, right? But they don't, and they're like, and then literally they're like, what are we gonna do? Oh no! And so this boat pulls right up like 10 feet from the shore from them, and then these two guys run to the front of the boat and they unlock and you pull a pin on something that opens the door, and then they open this like front gate of the boat so that the ghouls will fall into the water right in front and make their way to the shore. And I'm like, why aren't you shooting those two idiots that are trying to do that and killing them before they can do that? And then it doesn't really matter. But they don't do that. And then I'm like, why aren't you at minimum, like, toss a Molotov cocktail into that big pile of ghouls and let them all burn up on the boat?
Anything.
Right. And it's like Padre was a military thing. It was funded by the government. It's like, really? You're telling me that nowhere in Padre there's not like a single, rocket launcher, a law or something that they could shoot at the boat and blow it up? No, we don't have that either. Now, Troy's people, they have rocket launchers because they use them later on in the episode. But no, not these guys. That was so frustrating to me that, again, these people know better.
Yep, they should.
And
how does a place, I find it hard to believe, yes, there was like the Civil War era, like
cannons.
Yeah, I was like, what is that word? It's age. It's terrible. Sure, they had those, but you're trying to tell me that a place that is an island didn't have any other. I mean, even if it was something as simple as like, hello, why don't they have like arrows that they can like light up, like flaming arrows and shoot them? You're telling me all of those kids that are trained in these different types of warfare weren't ready with something? And I mean, yes, as simple as something like a Molotov cocktail, but I don't get it.
Again, you have to remember that when the glimpses we got of Padre, there was a scene where you see people and they're like making ammunition. They're like packing the gunpowder into the rounds and stuff, right? And this is an army base. I mean, their dad was like a general in the army or a major or a colonel or something, right? So they're, like you're telling me they don't have a single machine gun there. They don't have a single, 30 caliber, machine gun you set up on a tripod. And they don't nothing. It's just mind boggling that their whole defense is, well, we can't stop them.
Yeah, might as well just let it go.
Yeah, and then suddenly, well, now there's all these ghouls against the wall and the gate. I guess we're, trapped. Oh no. But yeah, I mean, it was that part bothered me a lot. Yeah. I was just like, nope, I'm sorry. That's just very, very poor writing because these people know better.
And think of the mixed group of people you had there. You had, before Strand even got there, like you said, you had Dwight and Sherry, and you had June. And they've been together for a couple of years, but, I mean, June came from certain circumstances. Dwight and Sherry came from different circumstances. You've got the people from the hotel, all of the German tourists. They come from different circumstances of defending an area. You've got the kids and probably a couple of adults left over from the Padre, the pre-Padre group, plus you've got all those parents that came in. So you've got all these people with all these different, that's the part that always gets me. Maybe the kids didn't know how to defend the island, sure, but you're telling me there wasn't one person there that couldn't, and if they had tried something and it didn't work, I'd find it more believable. Like, we shot flaming arrows because that's what we had, and it helped, but it didn't work fully. Or we did this and it didn't work fully, and they're starting to overrun us. I mean, the fact that they did nothing, absolutely nothing. is what's unbelievable.
The most galling thing to me is, again, like literally these two minions of Troy have to like unlock and open up all of these barriers for the ghouls to fall off the front of the boat. And it's just like, shoot them. They're not, it's not like they're standing right there. Shoot them. And then you shoot those two guys and they're dead. Okay, well then either more guys got to come out to try and do their job, and you shoot them too. I don't know. It's just it was very frustrating. And anyway, so that's what happens there, and so they have to race back to help them. And at this point, then they talk to Russell, who is on the island because they brought him there. And Russell gets on the walkie-talkie and talks to Alicia, or talks to Madison, and drops yet what I guess is supposed to be another bombshell, which is that, well, Alicia might not actually be dead, because Troy like hurt her real bad, but then he sent me to go find the body, and when I got there, it was just like this bloody mattress and footprints that led away. And the knife that he stabbed her with was lying there too. And he was I love this line, he was in a bad mood that day, so I just told him that she was dead. That's what he says. I'm not making that up, all right? That's
I know you're not. Thing. I know you're not. I'm just laughing.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, really? Okay. And so now Madison's like, well, now I got to go look for her because she could be alive. And again, this is something that happened like 9 years ago.
Yeah.
Where are you gonna look? But anyway,
yeah.
So she wants to do that, and then somewhere in there, Tracy comes upon Troy, and he's now zombie Troy. So like none of these zombie apocalypse people who are just horrified that Madison killed him in cold blood put him down.
No, and they were surrounded by people.
Yeah, yeah, and they're just like, well, he's dead, and they left. I mean, apparently because he's walking around.
Yep. And
so so she shoots Troy. She puts Troy zombie down, and so then she gives that stupid medallion back to Madison, and she's like, here, you can have it. It doesn't work. It's supposed to keep people safe, and it doesn't work, and it's all a lie, and I hate you. And, oh, yeah, you killed my dad like 10 minutes ago, but I'm going to go with you because why not? And so then Madison puts the medallion in a clip from her gun and puts it in her pocket, because that's what you do with clips for your gun. You don't like reload them with more bullets so you could do a fast reload later. You just do that.
You store your jewelry in there.
Yeah. And so then just before they can get going, Tracy grabs the pistol and shoots Madison. And then the show does the clever, we're going to make you think that she's dead because we just shot her and she's going to die. And then Troy will be dead and then she'll be dead. And you guys will be like, whoa, man, we don't know where you're going now. And so she does that, and she kind of looks like she kind of dies. She closes her eyes and goes, and so you think, oh, maybe she's dead. And then I want to say it jumps forward, and Strand is now talking to Tracy and telling her this story about how, well, no, Padre was saved, or the people were saved because Madison, she saved us all. And Tracy's like, that's not possible because I shot her. And and Strand's like, no, you shot her, but you didn't kill her because you know what? In like the most original idea ever, the bullet hit the metal, man. It just hit the metal. So she's still alive. And then, I shit you not, she does like the stadium thing again.
Yep.
All right. And these guys are so cheap, they don't even have the guts or the money, apparently, to let us see her do this. Instead, we get Strand talking about it and we get like little glimpse flashback moments of her, you know, like knocking the valves off of all of these tanks of gas, and you know, somehow and she does the thing with the torches where she leads all the horde away from everybody, and they go down into the basement where her cell was, and then she gets in the cell, and then she throws a torch out the little window, and boom, they all blow up. And it's you know, and again, like this is something that like happened like, you know, an hour ago. And Strand is talking about it like, you know, it's something from like 100 years ago that they're remembering now, you know. And he has showing no like he doesn't appear at all devastated that his friend is dead at all. He's just talking about what a glorious thing she did, and you know, she's gonna live forever because of what she did, and it's so great, and aren't you getting all this cool vibes off this because she saved everybody, you know. And so I'm like, okay, I guess. And then for some reason nobody on the island thinks to look for Madison at all, and even just to find her body. They just leave, except for Tracy, who somehow digs through the rubble of this place for like a day and finds her, and she's still alive because she was wearing her oxygen mask the whole time. And so she could breathe. And so she is, and then somehow Tracy, who is like an 8-year-old kid, drags this unconscious woman off of the island onto the shore into some like tent somewhere. We don't know where, but she's there.
Some undisclosed location away from other humans.
Right. And everybody just lets her do it. No one's like, hey, there's Tracy. Nope, that's whatever. And so then Madison kind of starts to come around, and Tracy's like, oh my God, she's turned. I might have to shoot her. And she's got the gun, and then suddenly Madison coughs and opens her eyes, and then the breathing thing is completely gone. She never needs her air tank again in this show. And they have, again, this great conversation where Tracy literally is like, she doesn't actually say this, but what she's saying is, I know like yesterday you killed my dad, but I really like you.
Yeah. And I know everybody lied about who my mom really is, and I'm still not really clear on who that person is. But I'm ready to go through this life with you.
With you, baby.
Grandma, not grandma.
Grandma, right. And again, literally, it's right at that moment when you hear, is anybody there? And so she goes out, and, you know, literally in walks Alicia. And you have this reunion that, I know that they were trying to make this like the big, like, this is what everybody wants to see, and it's going to be this heartfelt reunion. I'm sorry, I've watched this now twice. This has all the emotion of like when the cable guy shows up at your house. I mean, literally, Alicia walks in and goes, Mom? And then Madison goes, Alicia? And then they're just like, cool. And then it's just like, hey, you know, I mean, it's like, you haven't seen this person for 10 years, and it's your mom or your daughter, and you thought they were dead, and that's your reaction? Like, whoa, all right, how you doing? Yeah.
It's funny, when they first showed her, I had this really quick thought, because first of all, the last time we saw ADC as Alicia, she looked like a hot mess. You know, she had the infection, she was all sweaty, and she looked kind of gray.
Keep going.
And yeah, whatever. So when they showed her, and she's, you know, obviously magically healed, because that's what happens. Yeah. But when they showed her, because she actually looked so good, like her face looked so good.
You thought it was somebody else.
I thought it was someone else, and they AI'd her face on.
Yeah, I did too at
first.
Because
I was like, oh my God, that's how they got around it. They got Alicia's permission to use her face. And she was like, you can use my face and do it AI. I'm fine with that, and credit me, but I'm not coming to do this. I could totally see that happening. And I had that flash in my head. And it wasn't until she sort of moved in further into the tent and like interacted physically that I was like, that's really her.
Yeah, that's really her. Yeah. Well, and you know, I know that, you know, far be it for me to defend them, but in the last episode that she's in, she's like on death's door, and then she has that weird fever dream where she goes back to the tower, and the little girl's actually her, and all that craziness. And then she wakes up the next morning, and all the rafts have gone, and she's still there, but she looks much better. And she looks kind of like she looked now, like she's no longer feverish and all that. So they did kind of suggest that, which is a huge canon break, in that she is apparently the first person in the history of this show that was bitten and didn't die or turn.
Right.
But yeah, I know it's supposed to, and I know they did the hug thing, and they kind of had the like, oh my God moment, oh my God. But I mean, it was literally, it was like, hey, the cable guy's back, cool. I mean, there was, it could have been so great, and so emotional and so incredible, and it was nothing. Right? It was.
It's funny
nothing
too, like. Yeah, I agree. There wasn't any stakes. There wasn't any emotion in the scene whatsoever, the way it was written, the way they did it. But regardless of that, I still want to make sure it's clear. The circumstances were ridiculous, but I still feel it was still good to see her show up. And I'm glad that she did have some scenes with Kim Dickens, and that it wasn't like some kind of, because if she had showed up and there was some kind of tease or whatever it may be, that would have been even worse. But if she was going to show up, that's the person she should have the scenes with out of everybody that was there, and they did them. So at least that happened. So I'm glad. It was terrible, but it would have been terrible with or without her. So it was nice to at least get to see her one more time.
I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong. I always love to see my future Australian ex-wife. But yeah, I was, a little part of me died. I'm not going to lie. Just because I thought she was smarter and knew, look, this, that as far as I'm concerned, Fear the Walking Dead is a resume killer for everybody involved, right? You that's the thing you don't tell people you were in, right?
Yeah.
Like that little kid who plays Tracy, she's going to like talk about like the, Burger King commercial that she did, and not even mention, oh yeah, and I was like on 5 episodes of a major television show. No, she's not even going to bring that up, right? And then, they clear up the whole Tracy's mom thing, where they're like, well, this is your daughter, and Alicia's like, what are you talking about? And then Troy said this, and she's like, yeah, I never had a kid. Which I'm like, thank God.
At least she can confirm. She's like, yeah, that wasn't me.
That wasn't me.
Yeah.
But then there's this moment where Tracy's like, well, wait, who is my mom? And then Alicia's like, oh, I knew your mom when you were a baby. And I'm like, how do you know that that's the same kid? If this is, you the last time you saw her was when she was literally an infant, how do you know that this girl is that? How can you make that determination, right? And again, I get it. That's what it is. But it's just like, no, I'm sorry. You can't say that. Okay. But they do, and so then we get this, crazy thing where like they've painted all the trucks, they've painted over the P with an M for her. That was a joke. When the instead of Padre it says Madre, and the M's for Madison, and the other thing too, by the way, that I know Eric Kane brought this up, and I again could not believe it. Madison's like, Alicia, how did you find me? And Alicia is like, I heard a story from someone about this woman that saved Padre. And I'm like, you heard a story about something that happened yesterday? I mean, it's you know what I mean? It's like, how is that possible? How could anyone who doesn't know who you are ever, be telling, you know what I mean? It's just, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this story is so bad. And she also, by the way, mentions I heard the radio chatter. That's another thing that she heard. I heard radio chatter, so I added this way. But yeah, when she said, I heard a story about a woman that saved an island, and her name was Madison. I was just like, are you kidding me? Oh, so awful.
Yeah.
And so, but we kind of get the parting of the ways.
Yep.
To wrap it up. Yeah, and I know you have some thoughts on this because one of the decisions is ludicrous. Yeah,
it's.
I mean, two of the decisions are ludicrous, actually.
It's true. I mean, they all sort of, they did the proverbial like we're all going to go separate ways. And all of the groups of people did actually go separate ways.
Literally, yeah.
Which I thought was interesting. It was an interesting choice. But all of the pairings were very sort of obvious.
Mhm.
And obviously Dwight and Sherry, well, where are we going to go? I was thinking the sanctuary. That's ridiculous.
Oh my God. It's like, do you remember you were just there? Remember it was falling apart?
It'd be different if he said the sanctuary and they hadn't been there. You know what I mean?
Maybe.
Let's go see if we can resurrect it and make it something better. You know, that'd be different. They wouldn't have known. They have no idea, but they were just there, and it's just a piece of shit.
Right. And the walls were falling down. And so, but I mean, the thing to me though is even if they hadn't been there, even if they'd not gone back since they had been there on the main show, you're gonna take your wife back to, you know, your girlfriend, your woman, whatever, to the place where she had to sleep with Negan.
Mm-hmm.
That you're gonna make her relive all that trauma again.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, and on top of it, it's like, dude, go to Alexandria, go to the hilltop, go to, you know, I mean, there's so many other places that you know about where there probably are people that will help you.
Yeah, I know it's ridiculous.
That was bad decision 1, but let's get to bad decision 2.
So bad decision number 2. June decides she's gonna go back to John's cabin, and if memory serves, is that cabin not very close to the nuclear hot zone?
Oh yeah.
I mean, I don't want to, you know, and I did totally call it that she ends up sort of like adopting /
Dove.
taking Dove under her wing.
Oh yeah.
See what I did there?
I did. I saw that there. Yeah. Blue Jay and Dove.
Yeah. So those were ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
And I don't know if you noticed it either, but they left in the MRAP, and they have painted a big red cross on it. So now it's an armored ambulance of some sort, apparently.
Jesus.
And also, if you remember Dove, or Odessa, as her real name is, and again, I still agree with Eric Kane. I think it's hilarious that they still are using those stupid bird names.
They are. Yeah, it's stupid.
But if you remember, Dove's like, she's like, can I go with you? And she's like, it's a long way. And she's like, that'll give you more time to train me. And she's like, train you in what? And she's like, medicine. And that's supposed to be the, okay. And so she's going to be teaching her, I assume, how to do one-armed or one-handed medicine, because, you know, she can't do it with the other one because, you know, she's got a carved chess piece finger from Dwight. So, but so that, and I agree. I thought, first of all, even without the nuclear devastation, that cabin was not the most sturdy structure ever made, and it's been abandoned for like 12 years.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
it's probably not in good shape.
What are the odds it's even still standing at this point, right? But yeah, I mean, and even if it's not in the hot zone, you probably have to go through the hot zone to get there, right? I mean, that was foolish. That was foolish. And then the third group, or the third party or whatever, is Daniel and Lucy, and they're just going to keep doing their, keep
on trucking. No pun intended.
Yeah, and the, you know, take what you need, leave what you don't, and set up the gas stations. And they're going to do all that. To me, the only heartfelt and joyous reunion of the whole final episode was with the cat.
Yeah, that was the only welcome reunion.
Yeah, when Daniel found the cat, Skidmark, right? Skidmark? That's its name? Yeah. That I thought felt genuine, that there was actually some joy and, you know, relief and, you know, how can you be here and all that. That was fun. That was a fun little moment that he finally got that stupid cat back, right? I have to say, I find it really hard to believe that they like let the cat out from where they were, like a half mile down the road, and it somehow ran all the way up there to him. Because, I mean, you know cats, they do whatever the hell they want to do, but whatever. So then everybody gets in and drives away, and then the last group is Strand and Frank, can't forget Frank, and Klaus, And what is he? He like opens the cab and there's like the blue flower in there or something. And so he's like, "Did you put this in here?" And of course the kid's like, "I'm a guy. I don't pick flowers. What the hell are you talking about?" And so he's like, never mind. And so then he gets in, and then he, like you said before, he looks in the side mirror, and he sees, way in the distance, Tracy and Alicia and Madison kind of walking into like the woods, away from the road. And he smiles, right? Because that's what you do when people that, you were that close with, you find out are still alive, and, you don't want to like go talk to them and be with them. No, you just want to be like, so that's what he does. And they drive off to do whatever the hell they're going to do. I don't even remember if they said. They probably did. At that point, I was really almost asleep. So, but then the three girls get in some like fully stocked Road Warrior truck, and Madison's like, "You know where I want to go?" And Alicia's like, "I don't know. Where do you want to go?" And she's like, "I want to go to LA because, nothing is safer than like a major urban center during a zombie apocalypse, because there won't be any ghouls there, right?"
Yeah.
And Alicia even points out that they saw it get bombed, and Madison's response is, "That was a long time ago."
Oh my God.
Oh yeah. And so then literally they all get in the car and they drive off into the sunset. I mean, that's how the show ends, is that they go driving into the next tomorrow, and you're kind of left going, thank God it's finally over.
Yeah, and I did call the idea that they flipped it, though. I figured that Madison would be going off into the sunset to find Alicia's corpse or ghoul or whatever. I didn't think she would actually be going off into the sunset with Alicia.
With her, yeah, that I mean, I know that that's supposed to be the big shock, but I mean, like I said, I'm like, oh, here comes Alicia. Okay, but it wasn't like this huge surprise based on everything that they've done so far, right? I mean, when you saw her, I would assume that, well, let me ask you, was that a huge, like, oh my God, I didn't think they'd do that?
That they brought in Alicia? Sorry?
Yeah, that she came back.
No, I wasn't terribly surprised. I feel like they telegraphed a lot of it. You know what I mean? Especially with the whole unknown hero thing, even though that's not who that was. It wasn't, Alicia wasn't the unknown hero, but they were sort of going in that direction. And it was like, and I wasn't surprised, because if anyone would ridiculously bring back a character that should, but for all intents and purposes, be dead, it'd be these fucking idiots. So,
Oh, yeah.
And by that point, I was so emotionally and mentally numb. I mean, it could have been Travis, and he would have been like, "I survived the fall from that helicopter, and I've been looking for you ever since."
And
I would have been just as non-surprised as I was when it was
like his adopted son, or Ophelia, or like Daniel's wife, if you remember her. Yeah, I mean, any of those people, right? I mean, you'd be like, yeah, it makes sense on this show.
Yeah, that tracks. Yeah.
Yeah.
It didn't surprise me at all.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I said, it lacked any emotional punch for me.
Yeah.
Where you're just kind of like, yeah, that figures.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh God. We did a good job. We covered, I think I got everything pretty much on my lists that I want to talk about. I'm pretty sure we covered all of your stuff, unless, can you see anything that you think we should make sure we hit?
I don't think it's on the list, but the little tidbit, apparently one of Strand's angels is Scott Gimple's wife.
Yeah.
And that makes a lot more sense as to why those characters were introduced at the end. It was for, so she could get her union card and get some work, which, good for you, Scott Gimple, and, using your position to advance your wife's career. I like that. That's not nepotism at all. So good for you.
Nope.
Again, you have those characters. What happened to those girls? Did we see them do anything?
Nope.
Yeah,
nope.
So, okay.
Who knows? Who really knows?
I know. Again, I assume they had names. I don't remember what they are.
I'm not sure they ever even told us. And you know what? Honestly, they proved their purpose for, well, I don't know, whatever reason. And once we didn't need them anymore, they're gone, which is what these two guys do. Those characters served their teeny tiny purpose for a short period of time, and then they were gone.
Well, it's like they bring them out, they have them do whatever they need them to do, and then they like put them back in the cupboard, and they stay there. And if they never need them again, they never come back out. And if they suddenly need to, don't we do? Let's bring those people back, and then they just magically show up, and no one is ever like, where have you been for the last 8 years? It doesn't matter, you know. The Madison Alicia reunion where it's like neither of them was like, oh my God, I thought you were dead. What have you been up to? I mean, nothing, right? No follow-up questions at all as to where have you been, right? And the other thing too is at some point Alicia looks at Madison and goes, you know, if I knew you were alive, I would have been looking for you this whole time. And Madison says, me too. And I'm like, you didn't look for your kids at all when you got out of the stadium fire thing, right? Yeah. The idiots on Padre said they're dead, and you just went, well, okay, well, I guess that's it for that. I mean,
that's the end of that.
Yeah, it's just like, oh my God, woman. Yeah. So bad, so bad. But hey, you know what? It's over.
Yeah, it is over.
It's over.
So
I think that's all my stuff. So
good. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I want to take a break. I want to go away and then come back and talk about good things, which is feedback we got from our listeners. So let's do that. All right. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to discuss our listener feedback and what is coming up next on the podcast.
All right. So for the last time in the Fear the Walking Dead era, please stick around because we will be right back.
The following is an emergency action message. Civil authorities have identified a biological threat that they deem credible. This threat could potentially affect the entire continental United States.
The dead are returning to life and attacking the living.
911, what's your emergency?
There's a man up bad and he's attacking another man. Looks like he's biting him, like on the arm.
The initial signs are puzzling, unclear.
Getting pulled out of their cars and thrown to the ground. It looks like the bus passengers are biting their victims.
Soon, however, the reality is clear and undeniable.
The crisis involving the recently dead continues. Parliament today passed a law that requires all bodies of the recently deceased to be registered and turned
Toxic
over.
Bag Productions has captured the sounds of the zombie apocalypse and brought them to your gaming table. Background ambiances, zombie attacks, and radio transmissions that set the scene for your modern zombie adventure. Download MP3s from drivethrurpg.com or toxicbag.com.
Hey there, this is Greg Nicotero, and you're listening to Aim for the Head podcast with Diana and Steve. And don't forget to always aim for the head, because body shots, they really just don't work.
Welcome back, everybody. We are going to jump right into our listener feedback, which we got so much of this week. We're so excited. One thing's for sure, folks, cover a show that everyone hates, and you'll get a lot of people that tell you what they think of it.
It's a way to commiserate.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm glad that we were there for everybody. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so let's just jump right in because there's a lot to get to. So first, we did get some feedback from our pal Andy via the email. Hey, Andy. We got a lot of feedback from Andy, actually.
Bonjour.
And he wrote in about episode 10, the previous episode, Keeping Her Alive, and here are his thoughts on that. He says, hi, Diana. Hi, Steve. I just watched the 10th episode, Keeping Her Alive, and now I'm curious what you guys will say about it. Oh boy, even for trashy fun, this is extreme. Madison wants to feed a kid to the walkers? I didn't get why everyone blames Victor. After all, Troy wanted to attack Padre anyway. I think it was a clever move of Victor to kidnap his daughter. As the leader of Padre, he had the right to make such a decision. While Dwight abandoned the Padre kids to indulge in self-pity. But now Mr. I Am Negan is back to point the finger at Victor. Wow, that was hard to say. And he has a brilliant plan with him on how to solve the conflict with Troy. When did Dwight, Sherry, and June become self-righteous assholes who would hand over a comrade to a psychopathic enemy? I must have missed this. The scene with the frozen walkers, I didn't understand at all. You are not alone, sir.
You are not, sir.
Why are only their feet frozen? How long are they standing there? Is there always winter? How are those walkers meant to attack Padre? Walkers can't swim. Shut up, Andy. Stop bringing logic to this TV show.
See, it just doesn't work.
He continues and says, a strange episode, even for Fear standards. That's saying a lot. Greetings from Germany, Andy.
Yeah, I think a lot of good points. The only thing I would say about like everybody wanting to this is the episode where they're going to turn Victor over to Troy with Tracy. Yep. They're going to give both of them to Tracy in exchange that Troy won't attack Padre. And he's asking, why would Sherry and Dwight and June, who have known Strand, why would they want to turn him over to this guy? Because he's obviously going to kill him. Yep. And I think the answer is you have to remember when Victor was running the tower in that awful season, and he was kind of like the bad guy, right? He, did a lot of bad things to all of those characters. He made June work in the tower as a nurse, and he did not let June or Dwight and Sherry in, and made them, they were the Rough Riders or whatever they were, with the wrestler girl out righting the wrongs and so on. So I think they had outstanding beefs with Victor to the point where they're like, we can turn him over and it won't really matter. Am I wrong there, or is that?
No. That sounds about right. Right. It was, and you're right though. After sort of going through the slog that was the finale, it was hard to remember the slog of the episode that was before, and I was like, I know. I couldn't honestly remember what the Victor stuff was, and so thanks for bringing it right up into the front of my brain.
I know. Now you won't be able to sleep. I'm sorry.
Thanks for that set of thoughts, Andy. Always love hearing from you, and I'm glad that we have multiple other things from you too.
We do. So he wrote in again, and I want, this one is for, I think, is it for both episodes or just episode 11?
It's still thoughts on episode 10.
Oh, it is.
But he gives some sort of fuller thoughts because he's talking about the scene on the boat, and I think he's responding directly to our actual podcast on episode 10 because he talks about a lot of our thoughts. So
okay,
yeah,
all right. So he starts off. He says, "Guten Tag, Diana and Steve. Guten Tag.
Guten Tag."
He goes, "I never really loved Fear the Walking Dead. The main topic, the two psycho boys versus their parents, Madison and Travis. This was not my cup of tea. My favorite season is season 4. New interesting characters were introduced like John Dorie and Charlie, Morgan showing up, Nick dying. I remember fun scenes like Morgan's fight with Nick, the zombie eating alligator, the storm blowing all the walkers away. It was a promising new beginning until the the filthy, dirty marker lady showed up, and the show turned into what we have now." And I believe, the good stuff of that season was the first half, and the crazy, dirty marker lady part was the second half of season 4. He goes on to say, the unexpected hero is probably Victor. And the unexpected hero, that was in the episode description, if you remember.
Yeah, and we talked about it last week, and we had a whole debate on who we thought it would be.
Who we thought it could be, yeah. And he goes on to say, the main topic is if he changed. He will prove to have changed into, and I'm using air quotes, good Victor by saving everyone. In the German dub, Tracy says something like, the flame of life shall never perish, and that this has killed her mom. Okay. I assume that Madison said this over the radio to lure people to the stadium, and Tracy's mom died trying to get there. Interesting that was the German dub of the thing. And I think what she said on the walkie in that speech was, like no one's ever gone until they're gone, right? So maybe
no one's
that,
gone until they're gone. Yeah.
maybe that somehow got translated into the flame of life shall never perish, but interesting. He goes on to say, your argument why Alicia is not Tracy's mom is that it wouldn't conform with Alicia's backstory. But if Tracy has no connection with our heroes, why invent such a superfluous character? I think logic reasoning doesn't work when used on the script writing of Fear the Walking Dead. You are correct, sir. 100%. Yes.
Yep.
Logic and reasoning do not come into that room at all. He goes on to say, take that scene on the boat. Strand removes Tracy's blindfold so his, and I'm using air quotes, comrades couldn't give her back to Troy. Afterwards, by logic, Strand was saved. It makes no sense to deliver Strand to Troy if they keep his daughter, so Strand could have simply waited till they fished Tracy out of the water again. Keeping her at Padre was exactly what he wanted. He wasn't in danger, and she wasn't in danger, so if he doesn't want to give her back to Troy, why flee with her? Good questions. All good questions. Again, you're kind of creeping into that logic and reasoning area again.
Cut it out, Andy.
So, it's do it at your own peril. He goes, if you use logic on this, though, and again, danger zone. He goes, our fighters for Padre could anyway not deliver Victor to Troy because Victor knows where Padre is. Troy would torture him to get the location or make a deal with him. That's true. They were all gung-ho about, well, we can give the kid back because she's blindfolded and doesn't know where Padre is. And they didn't really mention the fact that Victor does. So that's a good catch there. We did not mention that. He goes on to go, I agree with Eric Kane that this is the worst episode ever. Not just because it is so stupid, but because it makes all characters act like a-holes. I hate that. At least give Tracy a quick death, but don't feed her to a walker. That is disgusting. I like Fear for being funny trash, but this is not funny. And he ends by saying, Auf Wiedersehen from Germany, Andy. And then he throws in a little PS, and he goes, what does, and he says in quotations, Mila, M-I-L-A, Steve, mean when you sometimes say that at the greeting?
We're just funning.
We're funny. Well, but see, again, I must be saying it really fast. I'm not saying Mila like M-I-L-A. I'm saying la Steve. Like in Spanish, we would say it would actually probably be El Steve O, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Or Esteban or whatever. So that was me just kind of being funny when I would start out by saying bonjour, and then I'd go be la Steve. So it's not Mila, it's me la Steve. So anyway, I think that's hilarious that you thought it was Mila. That's awesome, man. So.
Yeah, it was totally during our terrible French accents, and we're adding bonjour and, this is Steve and whatever, and he was just being funny. And it was just
it was like the
I thought it was
one.
hilarious, and we kept it for so long. And we're way beyond the French accents thing now. It was way back during Daryl.
Right.
So it's sorry for the confusion.
That won't resurface again until we get to episode 1 of the Book of Carol. So be ready for it. And so when it comes up, then I'm not saying Mila Steve. I'm saying me La Steve. Yeah. And I'll try and move a little emphasis on there so it's a little more clear. But that's awesome, man.
If
that's
you could
awesome.
put the emphasis on the correct syllable, that would be great.
I'll try and move it to a new syllable. Yeah.
Good idea. Perfect. Excellent. All right. Well, thanks for your follow-up thoughts on episode 10, Andy. We appreciate it. And Andy wrote in a third and final email, because third time is a charm. Obviously, with our recording a day late, he must have been able to watch all of the finale, which is fantastic. I'm so sorry that you did get to watch them. I'm sorry, Andy. I'm sorry. It's fantastic for us because he was able to get his feedback in time for the recording, which is great.
Yep.
So he writes in regards to the finale, hello, Diana and Steve. The grand finale was what I was hoping for. Really? So trashy and so cringy. Oh, yes, it was those things. I'm sorry. Really fun to watch. Really?
Wow.
Listen, one man's trash.
That's true.
One highlight was the end of episode 11 when Madison was crying, no! I was chanting, yes! I love it. I'd never have thought the Knuckleheads would have the balls to make Alicia Tracy's mom, but they did it. Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. But wait.
But wait, wait a minute. The other highlight was Madison's double resurrection. Her second revival was even better than the first one. While everyone had given up on Madison, Tracy swam to the zombie-infested Padre Island. With bare hands, she was digging in the rubble till... Wait, seriously? Yes. Then I saw a person with a hoodie, heard Alicia's voice, and as she entered the tent, I screamed, "Oh my God, her arm grew back!"
You know what? I thought the same thing. Because I'm like, wait, she's got an arm, but Madison has her arm.
Full. And she says, I think I never had such intense emotions during a Fear the Walking Dead episode. I mean, my emotions were intense as well. They were toward like the part where you're going to vomit. Or,
like the anger and
the
hatred and
Yeah, all of those. Mm-hmm. He continues and says, that was the moment for the perfect ending. Alicia should have said something like, "Oh, yes, Troy, I was lonely, and it was only a one-night stand, but, well, hi, Tracy, I'm your mom." But the knuckleheads used their chance to ruin it, whatever. If you're reading this, it means you survived watching 8 seasons of Fear the Walking Dead. Congratulations from Germany, Andy. P.S. If not, condolences from Germany.
Aww. I think we get condolences for watching all 8 seasons, to be honest.
I think so too. Thanks so much again for writing in, Andy. Thanks for taking the time to write all that stuff out for episode 10 and for the finale. And I'm so glad you got your stuff in on time, because we always like to include your stuff, and it would be a little bit while before we're going to podcast again. So the fact that it was able to be connected with the podcast we did on the finale was really great.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, dude. Your feedback is always great. It's always fun. And so thanks for being a part of the show.
Excellent.
All right. So let's move on. We are going to stay on our international desk, and this came via the email, and this is our pal from England, Bev 2. And Bev, I haven't seen the end, but I sure hope we get a weather update, because we were a little concerned last week when there really wasn't one. Hello. She starts out by going, "Hi, guys. I hope you had a good week. Well, what can I say about these 2 episodes? That trap that knocked them off the road was good. It was an Ewok trap, man. It was great. Yep. No bloody idea who made it. Ewoks. And after that, it's downhill, and I spent the rest of the episode thinking, what the actual F?" And she goes, "How did Troy survive being impaled on a branch?" Question. Why did that bird guy come back? Oh, hey, bird guy. Yes. He goes, "I thought we were done with that crappy villain. Why would Madison stay cuffed to Troy when he could die from his wound?" Good question.
Yes.
How would a woman and a man who are on the edge of death escape quicksand? Then the revelation that Tracy was Alicia's daughter. The look on Daniel's face was priceless. Like the actor thought, "Can you believe this shirt?"
Yeah.
Cut to episode 2. Madison wouldn't leave everyone in Padre to die, so making out that she would is crap. I'm sure I wasn't the only one who knew that the necklace would stop the bullet, so that was dumb. Yeah, that was dumb. Then we cut to Padre, and it really looks like everyone is going to die, and although I hated the thought of Dwight going out like that, I feel everyone being killed would be a fitting ending. Then it cuts to Strand telling Tracy about Madison doing what Madison did, and it's the same as in season 4, and I think, why did they bother to bring her back? Then the dumbest thing of all. Tracy saves Madison. Sigh. If Madison were alive, Strand would have been the one to dig her out, not a kid. I agree. The fact that everybody else that knew her are like, well, I guess she's dead. Let's move. Really? You didn't look for her at all? Anyway, although the end scene was cheesy, I did like everyone going their separate ways, but surprised no one was leading Padre. Not sure who's looking after those kids now. Also, the sanctuary, and really, it's like, it doesn't matter. Those kids have served their purpose. Really. They're not really part of the story anymore. Then she brings up a point that we did, which is also the sanctuary was literally falling down the last time Dwight and Sherry were there, which, by the way, was like a day ago. Okay.
Yep.
It's not like it was last month or something. Literally, it was like, the thing on Padre happened on Thursday. They were at Sanctuary on Tuesday. Okay.
Right. Right.
But then she goes, why not go to Alexandria? But maybe there who Carol was talking about, which I know that's what you think.
I just think it makes the most sense.
It does. It's news, but it's not like lead the broadcast news. It's sort of the story you get to after you've made small talk. So I agree. Right. I think it's very possible, and it makes sense because again, that place it's a pile of rubble.
Yeah.
So anyway, she goes on to say, all in all, this was a giant mess, and it was a waste of what was once a good series. Maybe we'll see some characters again in the future where they'll be written by people who aren't disrespectful to their backstories. Yep. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts. Bev, in rainy Devon. And then she adds, it'll be raining now until about June.
Terrible.
Wow. Terrible. And then she goes, P.S. Have an amazing Thanksgiving and a wonderful Christmas. Thank you. That's very nice. And absolutely the same for you and to your family. And she goes, here's the 2024 being a better year for our favorite TV universe. And yes, I think Daryl's going to be good. I think the Michonne Rick show is going to be good. And I think there is potential for even Dead City to turn into a good show. So
listen, none of them are this show, and so they've already got a lot going for them.
They do. So absolutely. Yeah. 100%. Absolutely. Anyway, Bev, thank you so much for writing in. It was amazing. Again, amazing feedback for all of these episodes. So thank you for being a part of it.
Yeah, thanks so much, Bev. Next up, he's been infrequent these days, but the P1 listener Alex Baelish did write an email. So Alex wrote in and said, well, this journey ended the way it started, shaking your head to say, is this the best they could do? They pull out all the stops to throw as many old storylines at us and still make us not want to care even less. I am surprised they did not bring back the crazy lady from the Road storyline. Hush. Don't speak of the crazy Joe DeMarco lady there, no, Alex. No. How dare you?
Although it's interesting, we have 2 references of her in the feedback.
Yeah, no kidding. Obviously, she was on people's minds. They managed to weave everything else in these last 2, air quotes, gems. Well done, sir. So he continues and says, so after it's all said and done, no one died from our group, and they all went their separate ways. I did like how Victor ended up, but seeing your future ex-wife did not help the ending. Thanks.
Yeah, I know. Again, I love her. I love to look at her. I love to see her. But yeah, I would have been very happy if they just kept her dead.
Yeah, it just wouldn't have made any sense any other way.
Yeah,
I don't get it.
You're absolutely right. Yep.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much, Alex.
Thanks, Alex.
That's awesome. Back to your P1 status. Well done.
Yeah. For now. For now.
Alex. That's right. We got more shows coming in 2024, and don't drop the ball.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on, we have our next piece of feedback. Man, we got a lot of feedback. This is so amazing. This one is from Karen. Don't call me Lauren Cohen. And she starts out, I love this. She goes, there is just no way Troy is walking around, and then this is all in caps, and digging a grave after he was impaled with a tree branch. I agree. You're right.
Yes.
He'd be dead.
Yes.
But okay. And remember, Madison pulls it out, which is like the one thing all the medical people say is don't do. But anyway, she goes on to say, that bird guy is still alive. I love how Crane has now been dubbed Bird Guy. That's awesome.
No one even cares who he is. Like, they're not even calling him Crane. They're like,
it's just Bird Guy.
Dude.
Yeah, right. And then she goes, and that's almost stream conscious. She's like, oh, good, he's dead now.
Yes.
I really just feel like people don't talk this way. Everyone just stood there waiting for Victor to have that long ass conversation with Madison. Then he ran off angry. That's true. He goes, wow, Tracy randomly knows field medicine? She's 8. Then she's like, how much money did they drop at ADC's door to make this happen? Not even the last scene, but like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And then she goes on, didn't the sanctuary literally fall apart?
Yeah. Like they leaned against it. It was falling down.
Yeah, I mean, it was all coming down around them, right? Then she goes,
Yeah.
wow, no one died except Troy? I bet the knuckleheads were like, everyone will give us a pass if we just bring the stupid cat back. She goes, I am a little bummed it's over because I like this world, but this show was just haywire. Nothing made any sense, and time and space are one. I didn't like the ending. Everything just got wrapped up for everyone. I could go on, but I'll let you do that. Cheers, guys. The show wrap-up deserves a drink. Yes.
Seriously.
Make it a double.
Yeah, no shit.
Oh, thank you so much for writing, Karen. It's great. Really appreciate you doing it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Karen. Next up, we got some feedback from Joe Levine via Facebook. Joe wrote, so happy this garbage is done. Really, ... Alicia? Can nobody die on this stupid show? Dwight wants to restart the sanctuary. Why not go to Alexandria instead, where you can actually farm and be self-sufficient? Or maybe anywhere else that's not an old factory and concrete grounds. Hey, isn't it time for his wife to dump him again? These showrunners should never be hired for anything ever again. I wouldn't trust them to properly fill a fast food order.
You're right.
Ooh, that's
You're
some
right.
shade.
They're the
Joe,
kind of guys that you go to, they're working at the Burger King drive-thru and you order a Whopper and fries. And when you get home, you open the bag and you have a Whaler and onion rings. I'm telling you.
Yeah. What is that? So yeah, right there with you, Joe. Great points. And yes, they already know that the sanctuary is the whole point of the sanctuary is you had to steal things from people because it doesn't have any land around it, not like farmable land.
Right.
And they would know that better than anyone because they lived there. Duh. Yeah. So you make good points, Joe. You know, as always with the rest of us, instilling some logic in a show that had no logic. So
it has no
logic. Thanks for sharing your thoughts. We hope to get your thoughts on other Walking Dead shows as time wears on in 2024, where things will hopefully get better.
Absolutely, man. Thanks so much for writing.
Thanks,
dude.
Joe.
It's really cool. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Our next piece comes, this also via the Facebook, and this is from Erica Price.
Hey, Erica.
Hello, Erica. How you doing? She goes, these last two episodes were so completely disjointed and all over the place. Madison's going to kill Troy. Oops, change of plans. He was fully impaled in the shoulder, and now he can carve a name in stone and dig and fill a grave. Yes, he did.
Yeah.
How is a giant herd a threat to an island?
Oh, man. Yep.
Then finally, Troy's dead. Finally, Madison's dead. Yay! Just kidding. Then tiny little Tracy was able to single-handedly dig her out and drag her to the beach from Padre's basement? Sure, why the hell not? And she goes, oh, look, my favorite character, Skidmark. And then she has a little cat emoji, which is great.
Awesome.
And then Alicia made it all the way back after all these years. Now girls trip into the sunset? Jeez. It seems they had no way to tie any of all of this up. So they're all just going to go their own way. Dum, da-dum, dum, dum.
Yeah. With actual word like D-U-M-B, dumb.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yep. Oh, yeah. And then she finishes it off by saying, thanks for your coverage to the bitter end. We deserve a medal. And you know, if the president wants to decorate me, I will accept it. So
I agree. Whew.
But thanks you for writing in, Erica. It's awesome.
Yeah, thank you, Erica. We appreciate it. Next up, we got some feedback from Lisa Dupre, who said she wasn't going to watch the show. So I'm curious. And she writes in via the Facebook and says, yay! Obviously, that yay isn't for the show. You made it. I'm proud of you for surviving, along with pretty much everyone on this show, because nobody dies on Fear the Walking Dead. Even their title is bullshit.
Yes. Yeah, you are spot on, Lisa. You are. I've said for years that the irony is killing me that a show with the word fear in the actual title is the most fearless and tenseless show on television.
Agreed. Terrible.
Yep.
And it wasn't always that way.
No.
So thanks everyone for your feedback on the episodes themselves. We did put out sort of like a homework assignment where we wanted people to sort of, that way we could sort of leave on a high point. We wanted people to, and Steve and I had been talking at the beginning of the season about different scenes and episodes and characters and things that we remember as being positive and things we liked. And we wanted to reach out to you guys and have you guys send us back everything that you thought was good in the past, something you liked, whether it was a character or an episode was great or a scene, whatever it was. And you guys came through. We got a couple of people giving us some thoughts here, and then Steve and I are going to put some thoughts in there too. So we heard, these were all via Facebook, by the way. A longtime listener, Shenandoah Grand Poobah, who we haven't heard from in a while. So thanks for sending in your thoughts. If you're not listening to this or even watching this season, I don't blame you. And she writes in and says, the scene where Madison finds the guy in the desert with part of his brain removed, reciting a poem, that was creepy. I don't remember that. Like, I remember it, but I don't remember when it happened.
It happened either at the end of season 2 or like the beginning of season 3. Okay. It was when they left the
ranch.
Not the ranch,
the place in Mexico.
Yeah, in Mexico, and they were working towards the border. Remember, and Ophelia kind of was vanished, right? And she would show up on Fear and do like the Love Actually thing with the cards of like, where's Ophelia? We don't know. It was in that time frame. And you're right, that was really creepy.
Wow, I must have blocked it out. I didn't remember that, but as soon as I read that, I was like, oh, I have like a very vague memory of that. But yeah, I agreed. Good call. Thanks for sending that in, Shenandoah. We appreciate hearing from you. Next up, our pal, Elizabeth Schmoopy, who wrote in and said, John Dory's monologue, his first appearance. And it will always be magical, which is true. That great story by the fire with Morgan was really great. That was a good scene.
That was,
and a great introduction of a great character. That's for sure. Kelly Burgess wrote in and said, I did love Althea. I felt like her character had so much potential. I'm sorry. And that's true. I think just, Maggie Grace was like, I'm done with this.
Maggie Grace is like, I'm done.
Yeah. So agreed, Kelly. I really liked Al as well. And Erica Price let us know, she did in her feedback as well, but she wanted to make sure it was clear that Skidmark was the best character.
Yes.
Agreed. And she said, favorite episode? Any that had John Dory. Aww, true. He was really great.
He was.
Now, how about you, Steve? What would you say? Because we've covered some stuff at the beginning of the season. Is there one in particular that you want to single out? Maybe we've already talked about it, or something new you want to bring to the table. What you got?
Well, I mean, I don't think this is going to surprise anyone. If you've been listening to our coverage of this show, I might have let it known that there's a particular actor that I'm a little fond of.
Really?
Yeah, I know. Shocking, right? It's ADC. She's pretty groovy. I definitely, there's certainly a little bit of crush going on here for me. And
there is?
I know. Shocking. I think the reason why I would bring her up as like the thing for me is that as the show got worse and worse, starting with season 4 and moving on, and it did. I mean, it just got more, and in my view, it became very boring. Right? Nobody ever died. No one was really. Whenever they would put people in peril, they were never in peril. And they started doing dumb things. And then, of course, the timeline and the distance and the walkie-talkies and all of the stuff that they just kept piling on, and it kept getting worse and worse and worse. I always look forward to seeing Alicia. That was kind of the thing that kept me coming back to the show, right? And so when they did the season where she wasn't in the first half, I was just like, even though it hadn't been confirmed, I'm like, I bet she's leaving the show.
Yeah.
That was my thought, because why is she not in there? She's top billed, but we don't see her. That's not normal, right? So anyway, then once she left, there was very little reason for me to watch the show other than the podcast. So, but I would definitely say Alicia Debnam Carey. I like her. I think she's a really good actor. I've talked about some of the other stuff that she's done since then that is really good, and you can see her actually acting, and it's amazing. And so, yes, I would say her. Excuse me. And it just in general, if I were to pick, there was an episode in season 5 that we have talked about a lot, and it was called The End of Everything. And it was the episode with Al and the character Isabel from the CRM, where they are. It's a bottle episode. It's just the two of them, and they're struggling to climb up the mountain, right? Because at the top of the hill is all the fuel and the supplies, like a little CRM depot or something. And they form this relationship, and it's just a really great bit of acting by Maggie Grace and the gal who plays Isabel. And I always, that episode always stood out. Was that and the Storm episode with Alicia and Charlie that I thought were the best episodes that these guys ever did. So that would be it. But yeah, my number one without a doubt is ADC, and then I would say that episode was really special. So what about you? What do you got?
Well, but I did have an episode that I wanted to talk about, but to sort of piggyback your thoughts on Alicia Debnam Carey, I always really enjoyed her, and a lot of it to me was surprising. When they first announced the cast for this series, I was excited because I love Kim Dickens, because she was a big character on Deadwood, which is one of my favorite shows of all time.
And a small character in Lost.
Yeah, but what was great about that was I always followed the people from Deadwood into other media, and she did have a small part on Lost. That's true. Very pivotal. And she also was on a few episodes of Sons of Anarchy towards the end of the run. So she's been in a couple of franchises that I loved and did great. Like, she's great characters in all of those locations. So when they announced Kim Dickens, that was my way in. I was like, ooh, I like the idea of this show, and I love Kim Dickens. And then when the first season started, I was like, okay, so Kim Dickens is still awesome. I'm not sure about the writing on this show yet. I'm not sure, whatever. But oh my God, these kids, I want to kill them. Hated them. But then as time went on, it felt like the growth of living in the apocalypse was shown so well through Alicia's eyes and through her experiences, like the best. She had a lot of solitary time. The only time you ever really saw her in like a, air quotes relationship was when she was on the auto ranch, when she was with Troy's brother. Sam was his name, if memory serves. But other than that, it was
Jerome.
Thank you.
I think that was his name. And the only reason I know that is that I looked it up when people started doing the thing about, well, Alicia could be the mother, and I'm thinking, so Troy and Alicia slept together, and I'm like, that's not right, because she was sleeping with his brother, and I looked it up, but yeah, it was Jerome, and I believe that's also the name of the dad. His name was Jerome, so he technically was a junior, but yeah.
Oh, you know what it was? I think Jake. He was called Jake as a nickname. Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. So anyway, I feel like her growth and experiences through all the seasons was the thing that was the most, I guess, like the meatiest, like it had the most meat to it. Because there was always something she was going through that you were like, well, that makes sense. That makes sense. That makes sense, And it's funny how I pivoted after a couple of seasons to Kim Dickens started not being my favorite part of the show, and she did. Alicia Debnam Carey did. So it's interesting, like, and not from the same perspective as yours. I just felt like her story was like the through line. Like, her experiences were like, they were supposed to mirror like the average person. This is how I would feel. These are the things I would do. I mean, she became very badass, but she wasn't in the beginning.
Oh,
you
no,
know,
no,
she had to
yeah.
sort of grow into that, and we saw that happen. Whereas Madison was a mom who was used to fighting for her kids, and she had kind of a shady past that we didn't know a lot about. And she sort of fell into that role of being a badass a little easier. You know, Alicia was 16 and needed to sort of like fall in. She had to learn how to be a badass, and she did. So from my perspective, yes, I thought it was interesting how my brain wanted Kim Dickens, but then as time wore on, it felt like Alicia was the heart of the show. Her growth of who she is. And even, you know, in retrospect, it's even stronger. You know, I know a lot of people had a lot of feelings about Nick, and I did like Nick as a character, and I really liked Frank Delane. I thought he did a fantastic job as Nick. But I felt like the center of the show was Alicia, and always was. So that being said, I did pick an Alicia episode as one of my favorites, and it's from back on the Brokejaw Ranch, and it's episode 13 of season 3, and the title of the episode was This Land Is Your Land. And as a quick sort of memory, this is the one where Alicia ends up getting locked in the supply area
with the ghouls in there.
Yeah, with the preppers, and people are slowly but sure, and they turn the air off, and people are slowly starting to die. And so she's got to deal with the idea of these people that have now become family, you know, because they were at the ranch for quite a while. So these people have become close. She's part of their family. By being in a relationship with Jake, it's almost like she's a part of like the established family of theirs. So almost in like a power position, one would say, like, you know, if whoever was with the dad was a queen and he's the prince, she's the princess. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it put her in this position of authority and responsibility, and people started dying all around her. And it literally, you know, part of what I just said about seeing Alicia sort of grow into her badassery, there was a big jump in that growth that literally happened in front of your eyes in this episode. And I thought that really established who she was going to be from there on out. And it's a great episode. In fact, if you're late to the Fear the Walking Dead and you never saw it, you really should go back and watch all of season 3, because man, wasn't that a fantastic season. And kind of like Eric Kane said in one of his articles, it had no business being good, and it was. So it's just really great. Can't recommend it enough. And that was probably my favorite episode definitely my favorite episode of that season, and it's probably in my top episodes of this series of all time.
And which, by the way, I would point out that the person that locked her in there was Troy.
So they've got good history.
You know? So clearly she would want to jump into bed with him, you know.
Yeah, why wouldn't she?
Absolutely.
I mean, it makes all kinds of sense. Duh. So thanks everybody for writing in with your positive thoughts on the show as we ended. So I'm glad that we sort of left on a positive note, so that we can move on to what the next thing is, which is what's next on the podcast. Rest, people.
That's right. Holidays and rest.
Yes. And what we want you to do is, our next piece of homework for you is to do nothing.
That's right.
Instead of watching a show that we've been hate watching for quite a few seasons now, find something fun and interesting and that's next on your list to watch. Watch that. Immerse yourself in something that's so much better than this. You know, maybe go and watch season 3 of this if you really want to. But I would move far away from this show. Watch something else that's uplifting. May I recommend? I am also watching the current season of Great British Baking Show, and it is so delightful, that show. They are so nice to each other, and it's just so lovely. And it's just about cakes and pies and bread and stuff. So I can always recommend that as something to watch. So do that. And also rest your brain, rest your heart, rest your mind, and we'll come back at some point and talk about another show, and we will let you know when that's going to be. The one date that we know for sure is they did release during the broadcast of the Fear finale that we have the exact date of the Rick and Michonne show, and that's going to be on February the 25th.
Yep.
It's a little later in the month than I was expecting it to be, but that is perfectly fine. Nice and far away from, the Super Bowl.
Well, and so that's going to kick off the Walking Dead year of 2024.
Yes.
Do we know what'll be back next? Will it be
they haven't
Dead
said.
City, or will it be Book of Carol?
They haven't said.
Okay.
So that being said, we have a really good idea of something that we want to cover. We're going to keep it a little quiet for right now, but we came up with a really good idea over this past weekend while we were at Days of the Dead, the convention, which we'll get to that. But we're going to sort of keep it under our hat. We know it's a certain amount of episodes. I think it's 13. And we just want to make sure we put it in the right spot. So if we know, like, say, Rick and Michonne is only 6 episodes, and it ends, like, say, April, whatever, if we're not going to see another show for another at least, 12 to 13 weeks, that's when we'll talk about this next thing. Otherwise, we may, punt it down the road a little bit. But it all depends on what the upcoming schedule for Dead City and Book of Carol are. So
Okay.
We'll see. We'll see what we'll see. We know we're going to be covering that. And at some point in the off season, we've been invited by our pal, Mark Kirkman, who runs the podcast Adrenaline Cinema Podcast. And he'd love to cover the legendary Night of the Comet with us. And we're just working on the details. So when that happens, we will reach out to all of y'all for some feedback and some thoughts on that movie. And then we'll send you some links when the time comes. So keep your eyes and ears out for that. Yeah, that's what I know. Quick thoughts on Days of the Dead. I had a great weekend. It was so much fun.
It was, yeah, it was great. There was a little drama, not gonna lie. But that aside, it was super fun. We got two amazing stories from Harry Hamlin.
Oh my God!
This legendary guy, right? I mean, I'm talking to him, and I'm like, I'm talking to Perseus right now at this moment. Where's the owl? I kept looking for Bobo, Yeah. But yeah, he was great. I mean, everybody's shows are great, right? He was great. The Friday the 13th Part 3 people were amazing to meet, and they are so, that movie is old enough, and most of them did not really go on to long careers in Hollywood. That they're all like, I can't believe that people want to meet us and get my autograph and all. They're like in awe of people like me. They're like, will you sign my poster? So they were great. And of course, Alyssa Sutherland was fantastic from Evil Dead Rise. She's always, I know you weren't able to get to her panel, but yeah, she's always super fun. Daniel Harris and Scout Taylor Compton were really great together. They're super fun. They have their own podcast, which sounds crazy, that they started during COVID. That is really interesting, and they were fun. We got to see Ace Frehley from a distance. We saw Jenna Jameson from a distance. Tracy Lords from a distance. There was a lot. There was a couple people from Five Nights at Freddy's. A couple of the actors from that
very
movie.
Popular.
Right, and that's still out in theaters for another week or two before it goes to streaming, and so that was really cool. Oh, it was great. It was again, it's a wonderful show. The people there, both the guests and the attendees, are all usually 99% of the time they're super friendly and nice, and you can just walk up to someone and be like, wow, that's a cool shirt, or where'd you get that thing that they're holding waiting to get signed, and they'll be like, let me tell you, and they're just it's very friendly. You can just kind of strike up a conversation with anyone, and super fun. I had a great time. I really did. It was super fun.
My big ones were I got to meet Mark Boone Jr.
and
Kim Coates from Sons of Anarchy were there. And I paid my good monies to get my pictures with my boys, and they did not disappoint. They were so much fun.
Possible they might have been
listen,
having
they
a
were
drink or two.
They may have had a drink or two that night, and that's fine. It just meant they were friendlier.
Yeah.
They need a little convention lubrication, probably. Well, and it was Friday night.
It was Friday night. And,
I didn't interact with them on Saturday at all, but Friday night they had just gotten there, and Friday night's usually more of a party night anyway. People are walking around the con floor with some barely, disguised cans of beer and stuff like that. So it's not unheard of. So, and they were not inappropriate in any way. They just were. You could tell that they were a little lubricated. That's all. Much fun.
Yeah, they were awesome. There's no doubt.
Yeah, so much fun. And what was great was you said the thing about, sharing with other people and all that other stuff. And I was in line for Kim Coates, and I had already met Mark Boone Jr., and I was in line for Kim Coates, and he is so talkative and so jibber-jabbery, and he's chatting with the couple in front of me. And the gal was talking all about how she had met so many people from Sons of Anarchy, and now it was finally time to meet Kim Coates, and she was so happy. And he was like, well, I'm the most important one out of all of them. And she must have made some comment about something about like taking pictures and, people, it's nice to take pictures of people that are more of a normal height. And he was like, oh God, yeah. I mean, he's just so tall. And I couldn't help it. I'm standing right behind them, and I'm like, you guys have to be talking about Ryan, right? And Kim Coates looks right at me. He's like, motherfucker is so fucking tall. He's so tall. So talking about Ryan Hurst, obviously. And I put my 2 cents in, and I said, and I looked at the girl, and I looked at Kim Coates, and I was like, when I met him, which was at Walker Stalker in Atlanta, I said, I took a picture with him, and it was right after he had taught a yoga class, and he had his turban on. So put a 4-inch turban on a 6'4" guy, and then put a 5'3" girl next to him, and that's the picture I have of Ryan Hurst.
So it's your picture, it's your face with like his, elbow.
Yeah, I was like, dude, I barely made it to his mid chest, and like Kim Coates and the couple in front of me were laughing and laughing. So I love that kind of con experience where it's like, people are allowed to jibber jabber with the talent, as it were, but also there's like that friendly atmosphere where it wasn't like I was butting in. I was just adding in a little extra sauce, and everybody was laughing, and it was just a lovely night. It just really was. And I went to their panel as well, and that was a lot of fun too. They had a lot of really great information about Sons of Anarchy, and they told some fun stories. It was really good. And I had a great time. I always have a great time there. It's a nice, smaller convention, but some upgrades too. Like the panels were in a much better room. I love that.
Yeah.
That setup for this year was a lot better. Love it.
Yeah, got rid of the desks with the tray, like almost like you're in high school again type thing, where they stuck us that one year. Yeah.
And I also like too, like the panel room. It was like literally right next to the ballroom where the whole event was happening. So it's great because you didn't have to sort of like go find the room, and
go down the stairs and walk down a hallway, and it was all right there in a row. You came out of the panel room and you walked 20 feet and you were at the dealer's room. So that was really cool.
Yeah,
that was cool.
It worked out perfectly. Much better. I hope they keep that set up. It worked really, really, really well. But yeah, we had fun, and we went out to dinner Saturday night, had a blast, and it was good. It was good.
Hey, we went out to dinner Friday night and Saturday night.
Yeah. For me, last con of the season, not for you and Jody, but for me, last con of the season. So it was a lot of fun. You guys still have one more to go.
One more Thanksgiving weekend, but that's a Doctor Who convention, which a little bit different. It's kind of the same, though, in terms of everybody's super nice. And so it's always fun to go. And this is one we've been going to for, 8 or 9 years now in a row. And we've gotten to know lots. It's weird. It's kind of like there's the same crowd that goes to the show. And we've kind of, gotten to know some of them to where it's like, hey, what's up? Hey, how you doing?
That's awesome.
It's always kind of fun. And this is the only time I see these people, but it'll be nice to rekindle those relationships. So that's coming up this weekend. It's going to be fun.
That's awesome. That's going to do it for us this week. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up. As we're on our way out, we just want to wish happy holidays to everybody. Not sure when our next episode's going to be, if it'll be before the Christmas holiday, but we're heading into a holiday season between Thanksgiving and Hanukkah and Christmas, etc., and then New Year's. So just stay safe. Spend time with people that you care about, and enjoy yourselves and eat a lot of food, people. That's all.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Everyone's safe and happy holidays. And I don't know. I'm thinking probably we'll pop up sometime in January with a review of something, a podcast about something.
Sure thing.
We'll figure it out.
Absolutely. And when we know, you'll know, folks. But until then, as always, I'm Diana.
And I'm Steve. Bonjour.
Bonjour. And don't forget to always aim for the head.
Because body shots, even in Fear the Walking Dead, they just don't work.
To send us an email, write us at aimfortheheadpodcast@gmail.com. And our Twitter handle is @AFTHpodcast. Pictures and video are always welcome at our Instagram account, Aim for the Head Podcast, all one word. But the best way to keep in touch with us is to just like our Facebook page to get all of our updates in your feed.
And we insert our little funny thing.